Women are in tears as they fall into deep poverty. Women are facing mass destitution and homelessness on an unprecedented scale as men withdraw their support entirely. Let that sink in for a moment, because this is not just a fleeting trend, but a profound shift in societal dynamics that is reshaping lives across the globe, from bustling cities in America to rapidly modernizing regions in China, where countless women are now publicly expressing their struggles to meet basic needs without the traditional contributions from men. This reality stems from years of warnings that went unheeded, predictions about a harsh economic and social winter that would expose the vulnerabilities in certain lifestyle choices. And now, as those forecasts come to fruition, it raises critical questions about sustainability, independence, and the true costs of entitlement. Stay with me through this exploration, because by the end, you will uncover strategies for navigating these changes and insights that could fundamentally alter your perspective on relationships and self reliance. The foundation of this discussion traces back to the insights of Kevin Samuels, a figure who dedicated much of his time to advising on personal development and relationship dynamics, emphasizing the importance of preparation for inevitable hardships. He consistently highlighted that a period of significant challenge was approaching for many women, one characterized by financial instability and social isolation, urging them to reconsider their approaches to life choices, career paths, and interactions with others. Samuels pointed out that embracing ideologies focused solely on individual empowerment without regard for mutual respect and partnership could lead to dire consequences, such as widespread poverty and a lack of support networks. He described this impending era as a winter, a metaphor for the cold, unforgiving conditions that would test resilience and reveal the flaws in unsustainable habits. According to his observations, women who prioritized short term gratifications over long term stability would find themselves ill equipped to handle rising costs, job market shifts, and the absence of external aid. This warning was not rooted in malice, but in a desire to foster awareness and proactive change. Yet it often fell on deaf ears amid a culture that celebrated independence at all costs. Now, as economic pressures mount and societal roles evolve, those predictions are manifesting in real time, with reports emerging from various corners of the world about women grappling with bills they can no longer afford independently. In America, for instance, inflation has driven up the prices of essentials like housing, food, and utilities, making it increasingly difficult for single individuals to maintain their standards of living without supplementary income sources. Similarly, in China, rapid urbanization and competitive job markets have amplified these issues, leaving many to voice their distress on public platforms. The core issue here revolves around the historical reliance on what can be termed the relationship economy, where contributions from partners played a crucial role in balancing budgets and lifestyles. Men, having recognized patterns of entitlement and unfair treatment, have chosen paths of solitude and self focus, leading to a withdrawal that exposes the fragility of systems built on unearned privileges. This shift is not about abandonment, but about seeking peace and equity as men invest in their own well being rather than subsidizing others. The result is a growing number of women confronting the harsh truth that basic monthly expenses often exceed what can be covered through personal earnings alone, especially in an era where wages stagnate while costs soar. Studies have indicated that a significant portion of women have historically benefited from dating dynamics that provided free meals, gifts, and financial assistance, allowing them to allocate their resources elsewhere. However, as awareness spreads and men opt out, this supplementary support vanishes, forcing a reevaluation of spending habits and priorities. For example, the emphasis on maintaining appearances through cosmetics, clothing, and grooming can consume budgets equivalent to food expenditures, creating a cycle where aesthetic investments compete with necessities, exacerbating financial strain. Inflation compounds this problem, with rising prices for groceries and rent pushing many to the brink, while technological advancements like AI disrupt job sectors, disproportionately affecting roles traditionally held by women. As a consequence, unemployment rates in certain fields climb, leaving individuals without the means to sustain themselves. Men, in contrast, are adapting by embracing simpler lifestyles that prioritize comfort and minimalism, often finding greater satisfaction in independence. This disparity highlights a broader narrative of cause and effect, where past behaviors and societal messaging have culminated in present day challenges. Women who once advocated for complete autonomy now face the unintended outcomes of those advocacies, discovering that true independence requires robust financial planning and diversified income streams. The panic visible on social media underscores the urgency of the situation, with pleas for understanding and assistance revealing the depth of the crisis. Yet, the response from men remains one of indifference, born from years of being shamed and marginalized, leading them to protect their own tranquility. This dynamic is not reversible overnight, as trust erodes over time, and rebuilding it demands genuine reflection and change. Governments, too, are constrained by their own fiscal limitations, unable to provide the bailouts or subsidies that might alleviate these pressures, further emphasizing the need for personal accountability. The trajectory points to worsening conditions as economies fluctuate and demographics shift, with aging populations adding layers of complexity to financial security. In essence, the era of entitlement is crumbling, replaced by a stark reality where survival hinges on self sufficiency and prudent decision making. To navigate this landscape, one must first acknowledge the warnings of the past, like those from Samuels, who foresaw the slump into destitution and urged preparation. His message was clear: the price for dismissing traditional values in favor of fleeting trends would eventually demand payment, and that due date has arrived. As hot girl summer fades into memory, broke girl winter sets in with unrelenting force, signaling that adaptations are essential for weathering the storm. Women are urged to confront this head on, perhaps by reassessing career choices, budgeting strategies, and relationship expectations to build more resilient futures. Meanwhile, men continue to thrive in their chosen paths, demonstrating that peace and solitude can be a powerful form of empowerment. This contrast serves as a lesson in balance, reminding everyone that mutual respect fosters stability, while entitlement breeds vulnerability. The unfolding scenario is a testament to the interconnectedness of societal roles, where the withdrawal of one group ripples through the entire fabric. Looking ahead, the implications extend beyond immediate hardships, potentially reshaping cultural norms around gender, work, and family. For those observing from afar, it offers a cautionary tale about the dangers of complacency and the value of foresight. Ultimately, this period of transition could pave the way for more equitable interactions, provided lessons are learned and applied moving forward. Delving deeper into the roots of this phenomenon, it becomes evident that the warnings issued by Kevin Samuels were not mere speculation, but grounded in observable trends and economic indicators that pointed toward an inevitable reckoning. He articulated a vision of mass female poverty where the privileges once taken for granted would evaporate, leaving behind a landscape of struggle and adaptation. Samuels emphasized that the embrace of feminism and career focused lifestyles, often at the expense of family oriented paths, carried hidden costs that would surface during times of economic downturn. He predicted that shaming men for their natural inclinations and contributions would backfire, leading to a mass exodus from traditional roles and a subsequent vacuum in support systems. This foresight was based on patterns seen in history, where Shifts in social contracts have led to periods of instability and realignment. Today, as those predictions unfold, women in various nations are experiencing the brunt of these changes, with social media becoming an outlet for expressing the inability to cover bills without male assistance. The narrative is consistent across borders. In America, where consumer debt levels are soaring, and in China, where rapid development has not equally benefited all demographics, the relationship economy, once a subtle underpinning of many lifestyles, is now exposed as a critical factor in financial viability. Men provided not just emotional support, but tangible resources through dates, gifts, and shared expenses, allowing women to stretch their incomes further. However, as men awaken to the imbalances and choose to redirect their energies inward, this economy collapses, revealing the underlying dependencies. Studies corroborate this, showing that over half of women on dates have primarily sought the benefits rather than genuine connection, a strategy that worked in prosperous times but falters amid inflation and job scarcity. The rise of AI is particularly poignant here as it automates roles in administrative, retail, and service sectors, which employ a higher proportion of women, leading to layoffs and reduced opportunities. Inflation erodes purchasing power, making it impossible to maintain previous standards without cuts or additional income. The trap of prioritizing beauty and appearance adds another layer, as expenditures on cosmetics and grooming rival essential costs, creating a vicious cycle of debt and deprivation. Women find themselves caught in this loop, unable to break free without sacrificing elements deemed necessary for social and professional success. Meanwhile, men who have walked away report higher levels of contentment, living frugally yet luxuriously in their simplicity, free from the burdens of subsidizing others. This peace in solitude is a deliberate choice forged from experiences of being labeled toxic or unwanted, prompting a reevaluation of priorities. The backlash against approaching women or initiating dates stems from years of negative reinforcement where such actions were met with disdain or accusations. Now, as women condemn this withdrawal, it underscores the irony. The same voices that demanded space are now lamenting the distance. The shift away from the simp economy, where men once vied for attention through financial gestures, toward alternatives like online platforms or international dating, further diminishes local support. OnlyFans, for instance, promises income but delivers meager averages, with most creators earning far below livable wages after fees. This reality forces many to confront the limitations of such ventures and the need for more stable paths. Governments, burdened by deficits and competing priorities, offer no lifeline, leaving individuals to fend for themselves in an unforgiving market. The rush back to men as a fallback plan meets resistance, as trust has been irreparably damaged, and men guard their hard won independence. This leaves women to face the beds they have made, a phrase that encapsulates the accountability at play. The arrival of winter, as Samuels termed it, brings cold truths about sustainability, urging a pivot toward self reliance and practical skills. As conditions worsen, with economic forecasts predicting continued inflation and potential recessions, the urgency intensifies. Older women, in particular, face compounded challenges as time limits options for career advancement or family building. The global perspective reveals similar patterns, with women in developing nations also feeling the pinch from globalization and technological displacement. This widespread impact suggests a universal lesson. Entitlement without effort leads to downfall, while preparation and respect yield resilience. Men, by focusing on themselves, exemplify this, enjoying the fruits of their labor without the drain of unequal partnerships. The indifference from men is not cruelty, but self preservation, a response to prolonged mistreatment. Social media amplifies these stories with videos and posts detailing struggles that were once private, now public cries for change. Yet, change must come from within, through budgeting, skill building, and mindset shifts. The nightmare reality Samuels warned of is here, characterized by potential homelessness, reliance on shelters, and basic survival tactics. Women demanding pre and post date compensations highlight desperation, cloaked in justifications about preparation costs, but revealing deeper financial woes. This tactic alienates further as it commodifies interactions in ways that undermine genuine connections. The overall message is one of caution. Heed the signs, adapt early, and build foundations that withstand storms. As the world watches American women navigate this decline, questions arise about how such a privileged group could reach this point, prompting reflections on cultural shifts and policy failures. The answer lies in the cumulative effects of choices, amplified by external forces like technology and economics. Moving forward, the path to recovery involves embracing humility, learning from past errors, and fostering environments where mutual benefit thrives. Kevin Samuel's legacy endures in these discussions, his victories evident in the awakenings occurring across genders. His smile from above symbolizes the vindication of truth over delusion, a reminder that foresight saves while ignorance costs dearly. Expanding on the economic underpinnings, it is crucial to examine how inflation and job market transformations are accelerating this crisis, creating a perfect storm that disproportionately impacts women who relied on relational subsidies. Inflation, driven by supply chain disruptions, energy costs, and monetary policies, has elevated the price of everyday items to levels that strain single income households. Rent in major cities has skyrocketed, often consuming over half of monthly earnings, leaving little for food, transportation, or savings. Food prices, in particular, have surged, with staples like bread, milk, and produce seeing double digit increases, forcing tough choices between nourishment and other essentials. Women who statistically hold more part time or lower wage positions feel this pinch acutely, especially when beauty maintenance expenses compete for the same budget. The cosmetics industry, valued at billions, preys on societal pressures to look a certain way, leading to expenditures that could otherwise cover utilities or groceries. This cycle perpetuates poverty, as appearances linked to job prospects and social capital, yet diverts funds from stability. AI expansion exacerbates this, automating tasks in fields like customer service, data entry, and retail management where women predominate. Reports from labor organizations indicate that women are losing jobs at rates higher than men, with reemployment opportunities limited by skill gaps or biases. Wages stagnate amid this as companies cut costs to integrate technology, leaving workers with flat paychecks against rising living expenses. The girl boss narrative, once empowering, now traps many in unfulfilling roles with no upward mobility as corporate ladders shorten and remote work dynamics shift. Men, having distanced themselves, avoid these pitfalls by pursuing trades, entrepreneurship, or minimalism, often achieving financial freedom through disciplined saving and investing. Their simple lives of luxury involve low overheads, allowing for travel, hobbies, and peace without the stress of supporting others. This contrast illuminates the flaws in over reliance on external aid, advocating for personal financial literacy as a cornerstone of independence. Social media confessions reveal the extent of the struggle, with women sharing stories of skipped meals, maxed credit cards, and eviction notices, all while men observe from secure positions. The shaming of men has backfired as it drove them to self improvement communities where they learn to prioritize their own needs. Now, approaches are met with caution, dates with skepticism, and entitlements with rejection. The demand for men to return ignores the years of dismissal, where men were told they were unnecessary or burdensome. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. Listening to those messages, men found solace alone, building lives that do not require partnership for fulfillment. Women, facing drying job markets, turn to side hustles like content creation, but platforms yield low returns, with average earnings insufficient for basics. Government assistance programs, strained by budgets, offer limited relief, often with eligibility hurdles that exclude many. This leaves shelters, food banks, and community resources as last resorts, a far cry from previous lifestyles. The prediction of slums and destitution materializes in urban areas where homelessness rates among women climb, driven by unaffordable housing and lack of support. Living in cars or on streets becomes a reality for some, highlighting the urgency for systemic changes. Yet, individual responsibility remains key, with strategies like debt consolidation, skill upskilling, and network building offering pathways out. The panic mode is palpable as time runs out for adaptations before conditions worsen. Economic forecasts predict continued challenges with recessions looming and demographic shifts adding pressure. Older women face retirement without savings, compounded by health costs and isolation. The global echo, from China's competitive markets to Europe's welfare strains, underscores the universality of these issues. Men's indifference stems from self protection, a logical response to past experiences. The narrative shifts toward empowerment through action, encouraging women to reclaim control by ditching unsustainable habits and embracing practical solutions. Kevin Samuels's warnings echo louder now, his call for preparation, a blueprint for survival. The end of hot girl summer marks the beginning of accountability, where winter's cold demands warmth from within. As societies evolve, this period could foster stronger, more balanced dynamics, provided lessons are heeded and changes implemented. The victory for Samuels lies in the recognition of his truths, guiding future generations toward wiser paths. To fully grasp the societal implications, consider the evolution of gender roles over decades, where shifts in expectations have led to the current imbalance and the need for recalibration to ensure long term viability for all. Historically, partnerships provided mutual benefits, with contributions balancing household and financial loads. But modern ideologies promoted solo pursuits, often portraying traditional roles as outdated or oppressive. This messaging, amplified by media and education, encouraged women to focus on careers and self expression, sidelining family and collaboration. Samuels critiqued this, foreseeing that without balanced approaches, economic downturns would expose vulnerabilities. His metaphor of winter captured the essence, a season of scarcity requiring stockpiles of resources and alliances. Now, as that season arrives, the lack of preparation manifests in widespread distress, with women voicing inability to sustain without male provisioning. The entitlement mindset, fostered by years of unearned advantages, crumbles under pressure, forcing confrontations with reality. Men, shamed for existing and contributing, withdrew to find peace, leaving a void that highlights dependencies. This withdrawal is not punitive but protective, allowing men to cultivate lives of contentment and autonomy. Simple pleasures like hobbies and travel replace the drain of unequal relationships, proving that solitude can be enriching. Women, trapped in beauty standards, allocate funds to appearances that could secure futures, perpetuating cycles of poverty. Inflation amplifies this, with costs outpacing incomes, leading to debt spirals and desperation. AI driven job losses target female dominated sectors, reducing opportunities and increasing competition. Wages fail to keep pace, making independence elusive without sacrifices. The girl boss era, once celebrated, now reveals its limitations as corporate environments favor efficiency over employees. Men adapt by choosing resilient fields or self employment, achieving stability through focus. The contrast teaches that true empowerment comes from versatility and foresight. Social media panic reflects the tipping point, with calls for men to return ignoring past rejections. Shaming tactics backfire, solidifying men's resolve. Alternatives like online platforms offer scant income with low averages after cuts. Governments, fiscally constrained, provide no safety net, pushing reliance on charities. Predictions of homelessness and destitution unfold with rising rates among women. Survival strategies emerge from budgeting to reskilling, offering hope amid hardship. Time pressures intensify as economies worsen and ages advance. Global patterns mirror this, emphasizing universal truths about balance. Indifference from men protects their peace, a earned right. The path forward involves reflection, change, and respect, paving way for equitable futures. Samuel's legacy inspires his win in awakened awareness. Winter's arrival demands adaptation, turning challenges into growth opportunities. Continuing from where the economic and societal forces have converged to create this undeniable shift, the conversation must now turn toward the specific mechanisms that have accelerated women's financial decline and the contrasting stability that many men have achieved through deliberate redirection of their energies and resources. One of the most telling indicators lies in the transformation of labor markets over the past decade, where automation and artificial intelligence have not distributed their disruptive effects evenly across genders. Sectors such as administrative support, customer service, retail sales, and even certain aspects of healthcare documentation have seen massive reductions in human staffing requirements, and these fields have long been dominated by female workers. Companies implementing large language models and robotic process automation have eliminated thousands of positions that once provided steady, if modest, incomes for women who entered the workforce expecting linear career progression. The promise of climbing corporate ladders through dedication and education has been replaced by flat or declining real wages, with many women finding themselves stuck in gig economy roles that offer flexibility but little security or benefits. Ride sharing, food delivery, freelance content moderation, and virtual assistant work pay irregularly and rarely cover health insurance, retirement contributions, or emergency funds. This instability contrasts sharply with the paths chosen by men who have gravitated toward trades such as electrical work, plumbing, welding, HVAC installation, and heavy equipment operation, fields where demand remains high, wages have risen with shortages of skilled labor, and union protections or self employment options provide buffers against economic turbulence. These men often report earning enough to cover modest living expenses while building substantial savings, allowing them to invest in index funds, real estate, or side businesses without the constant pressure of supporting additional dependents. The result is a growing divide where one group maintains financial breathing room and the other faces mounting arrears on credit cards, student loans, car payments, and rent. This divide becomes even more pronounced when examining household formation trends, as fewer women are entering marriages or long term cohabitation arrangements that historically pooled resources and shared burdens. The cultural push toward female independence discouraged reliance on partnership, framing it as a form of weakness or loss of agency. Yet the data now shows that single women between the ages of 25 and 44 carry higher average debt loads than their male counterparts in similar age brackets, largely due to the combination of educational loans, consumer spending on lifestyle maintenance, and the absence of dual income stability. Men who remain single accumulate assets at faster rates, partly because they face fewer societal expectations to spend on outward displays of status or appearance. The pressure on women to invest heavily in clothing, hair, nails, makeup, fitness regimens, and cosmetic procedures creates a perpetual drain on disposable income that men largely escape, choosing instead functional wardrobes and minimal grooming routines that cost fractions of what many women allocate monthly. This asymmetry in spending habits compounds over years, turning small monthly differences into massive gaps in net worth by the time individuals reach their 30s and 40s. Inflation has acted as an accelerant, pushing the cost of those appearance related categories upward at rates that outpace general consumer price increases in many urban areas. A single professional haircut and color service that once cost $80 now routinely exceeds 200 in major cities, while manicures, pedicures, lash extensions, and skincare routines easily surpass $300 per month for women maintaining what is considered a competitive professional or social appearance. These expenses, once viewed as investments and opportunity, now frequently lead to skipped rent payments or reliance on buy now, pay later services that carry high interest rates and further erode financial health. Meanwhile, men who have embraced minimalism report monthly personal care costs under $50, freeing capital for emergency funds, travel, equipment for hobbies, or early retirement contributions. This financial discipline translates into psychological freedom as well, reducing the chronic stress associated with living paycheck to paycheck or fearing sudden expenses like car repairs or medical bills. The peace that comes from knowing one's basics are covered allows for clearer decision making, stronger boundaries in relationships, and greater selectivity in social interactions. Women facing constant financial precarity often describe feeling trapped, compelled to accept suboptimal dating situations, or tolerate disrespectful behavior simply to access meals, transportation, or temporary relief from bills. This dynamic breeds resentment on both sides, with men perceiving it as exploitation and women viewing it as survival necessity, further entrenching the separation. Social media platforms have become digital town squares where these tensions play out publicly, with women posting videos expressing frustration over the lack of male attention or financial generosity, while men respond with memes, commentary, or simply disengagement. The volume of such content has increased dramatically in recent years, reflecting not isolated incidents, but a broad cultural realignment. Content creators who once built audiences around luxury lifestyles funded indirectly through male provision now pivot to discussions of hardship, side hustle struggles, mental health challenges stemming from financial stress, and pleas for understanding from audiences that include fewer and fewer men willing to engage. This shift in content tone signals the end of an era where performative affluence masked underlying dependencies. The average earnings from subscription based content platforms remain low for the vast majority of participants, with most women earning less than $200 monthly after platform fees, taxes, and production costs, amounts insufficient to bridge the gap left by disappearing traditional support streams. Those figures stand in stark contrast to the narratives once promoted about easy passive income through personal branding, revealing the gap between marketing promises and economic reality. As more women enter this space hoping for quick financial rescue, saturation increases competition, driving down rates and making meaningful earnings even harder to achieve. The same platforms that promise liberation from conventional employment now function as low yield side gigs for many, reinforcing the need for diversified income sources and realistic expectations. Education levels provide another layer to this analysis, as women have outpaced men in college enrollment and degree attainment for over 2 decades, yet that advantage has not translated into proportional economic gains. Many female graduates enter fields with high credential requirements, but modest pay scales, such as teaching, social work, human resources, and nonprofit administration, where starting salaries struggle to keep pace with urban living costs. Student loan debt burdens compound the issue, with women holding a disproportionate share of outstanding balances due to longer repayment terms and lower initial earnings relative to debt loads. Men who bypassed 4 year degrees in favor of our trade certifications or apprenticeships often enter the workforce earlier, accrue less debt, and begin building equity sooner through homeownership or business ventures. This head start creates compounding advantages over time, widening the wealth gap even among individuals with similar intelligence and work ethic. The cultural devaluation of skilled manual labor in previous generations contributed to this mismatch, as young women were steered toward white collar paths perceived as more prestigious, while young men increasingly filled the trades that society now desperately needs. The irony is palpable. The very degrees marketed as pathways to empowerment have, in many cases, become chains of obligation in an economy that rewards practical skills over credentials alone. Government policies have failed to address these structural imbalances effectively, with welfare programs often means tested in ways that discourage marriage or cohabitation, inadvertently penalizing dual income households. Tax structures in many Western nations favor single filers in certain brackets, but fail to incentivize stable family formation, while housing policies have allowed rents and home prices to balloon far beyond wage growth, pricing out young adults regardless of gender, but hitting single women harder due to their lower average earnings in mid career stages. These systemic factors interact with personal choices to produce the current landscape, where large numbers of women face genuine risk of downward mobility into poverty brackets previously associated with extreme circumstances. Reports from charitable organizations indicate rising demand at food pantries, utility assistance programs, and emergency housing services from women aged 25 to 50, a demographic shift that underscores the breadth of the issue. Shelters, once primarily serving older populations or those with addiction challenges, now report increasing numbers of working age women with professional backgrounds seeking temporary refuge after eviction or job loss. This trend challenges long held assumptions about female economic resilience and highlights the fragility of independence built on debt financed lifestyles rather than asset accumulation. Men observing these developments from positions of relative security express little sympathy, having internalized years of messaging that labeled their contributions as optional, oppressive, or toxic. The repeated assertion that women did not need men has been taken at face value, leading men to act accordingly by removing themselves from the equation entirely. This removal manifests not only in dating abstinence, but in reduced social spending, fewer gifts, minimal alimony or child support beyond legal requirements in cases where children exist, and a general retreat from chivalric gestures that once formed part of the social contract. The contract has been unilaterally renegotiated by one party through disengagement, leaving the other to adapt or perish. Adaptation requires painful but necessary steps, including drastic reductions in discretionary spending, relocation to lower cost areas, acquisition of in demand skills, and reevaluation of social circles to prioritize mutual support over competition. Some women have begun forming intentional communities, shared housing arrangements, or professional networks focused on barter and resource pooling, strategies that echo historical survival mechanisms in times of scarcity. These efforts represent proactive responses rather than passive waiting for external rescue, demonstrating that agency remains possible even in adverse conditions. However, such adaptations demand humility, a willingness to abandon previously held beliefs about entitlement, and acceptance that the world no longer operates under the same assumptions that prevailed a generation ago. The pace of change continues to accelerate, with each economic cycle tightening the screws further. Interest rates on consumer debt remain elevated, making escape from credit card balances more difficult, while healthcare costs rise unabated, creating catastrophic expenses for uninsured or underinsured individuals. Mental health consequences follow closely, with anxiety, depression, and burnout reported at higher rates among women navigating these pressures alone. The cumulative toll erodes quality of life, limiting the energy available for career advancement, creative pursuits, or even basic self care. In contrast, men who have embraced solitude frequently describe improved mental clarity, better sleep, stronger physical health through consistent routines, and deeper engagement with personal interests ranging from fitness and reading to travel and skill building. This divergence in well being further solidifies the separation, as those thriving have little incentive to re enter dynamics that previously diminished their peace. The lesson embedded in this reality is stark yet instructive. Sustainable relationships and personal security arise from mutual value creation rather than extraction, from respect rather than demand, and from preparation rather than presumption. Ignoring these principles invites the very hardships now unfolding across cities and nations. As winter deepens, the choices made in response will determine who emerges stronger and who succumbs to the cold. The path of least resistance leads to further decline, while the path of disciplined recalibration offers the possibility of renewal, albeit through effort and sacrifice that many once believed unnecessary. The era of unexamined entitlement has closed, replaced by an age where accountability shapes outcomes with unforgiving precision. Those who recognize this shift early position themselves for stability, while those who resist prolong their struggle. The global conversation continues to evolve, with voices from every continent adding nuance to the core truth that independence without foundations crumbles under pressure, and that true freedom requires vigilance, foresight, and respect for the interconnected nature of human support systems. The story remains unfinished, but the current chapter leaves little room for ambiguity about the consequences of past decisions and the imperatives of present adaptation. The divergence in outcomes extends into the realm of long term health and longevity projections, where financial security, or the lack thereof, begins to manifest in measurable physiological differences. Chronic financial stress activates sustained cortisol elevation, which over years contributes to accelerated cellular aging, weakened immune function, higher incidence of metabolic disorders such as insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, and increased cardiovascular risk through mechanisms like hypertension and endothelial dysfunction. Women carrying persistent debt loads or living in housing instability show biomarker profiles consistent with these pathways. Elevated inflammatory markers like C reactive protein, disrupted sleep architecture leading to reduced deep restorative phases, and higher allostatic load scores that predict earlier onset of age related diseases. In contrast, men who maintain consistent surpluses and low overhead lifestyles exhibit lower baseline inflammation, better autonomic nervous system balance favoring parasympathetic recovery, and more regular engagement in restorative physical activity that compounds protective effects on telomeres and mitochondrial efficiency. These biological divergences compound silently at first, appearing as minor complaints, fatigue, irritability, frequent minor illnesses, before escalating into diagnosable conditions that further strain already limited resources. Preventative health care becomes a luxury item for many women in precarious positions. Routine screenings, dental care, vision correction, and mental health sessions get deferred indefinitely, allowing small issues to become chronic and expensive. Men with financial buffers schedule annual physicals, invest in quality nutrition, maintain gym memberships or home equipment, and access prompt specialist care when needed, creating a self reinforcing loop of better health that supports continued productivity and wealth accumulation. The health wealth connection thus forms another reinforcing cycle. Good health sustains earning potential and discipline, while financial stability enables proactive health maintenance. Breaking into the Yi positive cycle requires initial capital many women currently lack, turning what could be a manageable transition into a multi year uphill battle. This battle often involves confronting the sunk cost fallacy embedded in previous educational and lifestyle investments. Years spent pursuing degrees in fields with declining demand or oversaturated markets represent irrecoverable time and money. Yet, the emotional attachment to that identity, teacher, marketer, event planner, communication specialist, makes pivoting psychologically difficult. Admitting that a chosen path no longer serves requires grieving the envisioned future it once represented. That grief process, while necessary, consumes emotional energy that could otherwise fuel rapid reskilling. Those who move through it quickest tend to treat the pivot as a pragmatic business decision rather than a personal failure. They audit current assets, identify transferable skills, map high demand adjacent fields, and execute targeted upskilling programs measured in months rather than years. Examples include women with communications backgrounds transitioning into technical writing for software documentation, former retail managers moving into supply chain coordination roles bolstered by short certifications, or administrative professionals acquiring data analysis credentials using free or low cost online platforms. Success in these transitions hinges on speed and specificity, focusing on credentials that employers actively seek rather than broad liberal arts refreshers, and on immediate application through freelance gigs, internships, or entry level positions that build recent relevant experience. The faster the loop of learning to earning closes, the quicker financial breathing room returns, allowing reinvestment in health, housing stability, and emergency reserves. Delaying that loop extends exposure to stressors that erode both physical resilience and cognitive bandwidth needed for effective learning. Cognitive bandwidth itself becomes a scarce resource under chronic scarcity. Behavioral economics research demonstrates that financial worry occupies mental real estate equivalent to losing a full night's sleep each day, impairing executive function, impulse control, and long term planning. Women juggling multiple low paying gigs while scanning for next month's rent payment exhibit decision fatigue that leads to suboptimal choices, accepting high interest loans for immediate relief, skipping nutritious meals in favor of cheap calories or continuing appearance spending out of habit even when income drops. Men insulated from these pressures preserve cognitive capacity for strategic thinking, evaluating investment opportunities, negotiating better compensation, planning career moves years in advance, giving them a compounding advantage in an economy that increasingly rewards foresight over reaction. Narrowing that cognitive gap requires deliberate practices to offload worry. Zero based budgeting apps that automate tracking, automated micro savings transfers that build small buffers without conscious effort, meal prep systems that reduce daily decisions, and accountability partnerships that externalize motivation during low energy periods. These seemingly minor systems create outsized returns by freeing mental space for higher order problem solving. Community level responses are beginning to emerge as recognition spreads that individual solutions alone prove insufficient against structural headwinds. Women's co living arrangements in lower cost suburbs or smaller cities pool rent, utilities, and bulk purchasing power while providing built in emotional support and shared childcare when children are involved. Skill sharing collectives form around mutual instruction in budgeting, basic home repairs, gardening for food cost reduction, and peer mentoring for job applications. Some groups formalize into micro cooperatives that negotiate bulk discounts on essentials, launch community supported agriculture shares, or even pool capital for shared real estate purchases that generate rental income streams. These experiments echo historical mutual aid societies that sustained populations through economic dislocations before modern welfare states assumed primary responsibility. Their revival signals both necessity and ingenuity. Necessity because institutional support lags, ingenuity because grassroots organization fills gaps faster than bureaucracies can respond. Participation in such networks requires vulnerability, admitting need rather than projecting invulnerability, which itself marks a cultural shift away from the curated perfection once dominant on social platforms. That shift toward authenticity reduces isolation and replaces performative competition with practical solidarity. Solidarity, however, stops short of entitlement. Successful groups enforce reciprocity norms so no single member becomes a permanent drain. Clear contribution expectations, whether financial, labor, or skill based, maintain trust and sustainability. Men observe these developments with detachment, having largely completed their own parallel process of forming male centric support structures focused on fitness accountability, career masterminds, investment clubs, and hobby based camaraderie. These groups emphasize self reliance first, mutual aid second, creating resilient networks that weather individual setbacks without collapsing. The contrast highlights different priorities. Women's emerging networks address immediate survival needs born of sudden withdrawal of external support, while men's networks reinforce long term sovereignty after years of perceived overcontribution. Neither model is inherently superior. Each responds to its group's specific historical context and current pressures. Over time, successful adaptations on both sides may converge toward hybrid forms that balance autonomy with selective interdependence, but only after each side has proven its own foundation solid enough to support sharing without exploitation. Until that convergence occurs, separation persists as the default equilibrium. Separation carries its own social costs: lower birth rates as partnership formation delays or ceases, reduced intergenerational wealth transfer through marriage and family formation, shrinking tax bases in aging societies when household formation slows, and cultural fragmentation as gender specific narratives harden. These macro effects unfold gradually, yet already influence policy debates around housing affordability, family incentives, workforce development, and mental health infrastructure. Policymakers face a delicate task, addressing genuine hardship without recreating perverse incentives that reward entitlement or penalize responsibility. Proposals range from universal basic income pilots that provide floors without strings to expanded trade school subsidies targeting displaced workers to zoning reforms that increase housing supply and moderate rents. Effectiveness varies. Poorly designed interventions can entrench dependency, while targeted programs that require active participation, skills training, job placement, financial literacy requirements tend to produce better long term outcomes. The key variable remains individual agency within whatever structural framework exists. Agency expresses most powerfully through micro decisions repeated daily. Choosing skill building videos over entertainment scrolling, packing lunch instead of ordering delivery, negotiating bills rather than accepting sticker prices, seeking feedback on resumes rather than assuming perfection. Each choice stacks advantage or disadvantage. Women who stack advantages systematically close gaps faster than those who wait for systemic rescue. Men who continue stacking advantages widen them further, creating a self fulfilling prophecy of divergence unless deliberate efforts intervene. Intervention at the personal level proves most reliable because it depends on factors within direct control. Waiting for cultural pendulum swings, economic booms, or policy miracles cedes power to external variables that move slowly and unpredictably. Personal course correction moves at the speed of individual commitment. Commitment looks like setting non negotiable daily habits, 30 minutes of deliberate learning before leisure, weekly net worth tracking, monthly skill assessment reviews, quarterly goal recalibration. These rituals build momentum that eventually overcomes as the initial inertia. Momentum transforms scarcity mindsets into abundance mindsets. Not magical thinking abundance, but earned abundance through consistent value creation. Value creation extends beyond paid work to relational value, listening without defensiveness, contributing solutions rather than complaints, demonstrating reliability in small promises. These qualities rebuild trust, capital eroded over years, making future partnerships viable when both parties approach from positions of strength rather than desperation. Strength attracts strength, desperation repels it. The principle applies universally, explaining why men currently withdraw and why women who rebuild successfully begin attracting higher quality interactions over time. Rebuilding requires patience because trust rebuilds slower than it erodes. Patience itself becomes a practice skill, tolerating discomfort without seeking quick fixes, measuring progress in quarters and years rather than weeks, celebrating small wins to sustain motivation during plateaus. Plateaus test resolve most severely. Visible results slow while effort continues, tempting abandonment. Those who push through plateaus reach inflection points where compound effects accelerate. Skills reach employable thresholds. Savings buffers grow large enough to reduce fear. Networks yield opportunities organically. Confidence radiates in ways that alter social outcomes. Inflection points mark the transition from survival to thriving. Thriving looks different for each individual, but shares common markers. Debt decreasing rather than increasing, health markers improving, sleep quality rising, discretionary income appearing for the first time in years, genuine enjoyment in solitary pursuits, and openness to connection without neediness. Reaching that state demands surrendering older identities tied to external validation, beautiful girl, boss babe, influencer aspirant, and embracing new ones rooted in competence, resilience, and self sufficiency. Surrendering old identities feels like loss until new ones prove more durable and rewarding. Durability comes from alignment with reality rather than fantasy. Reality currently rewards preparation, adaptability, reciprocity, and accountability. Aligning with those principles positions individuals, male or female, to navigate whatever disruptions arrive next, whether economic contractions, technological leaps, geopolitical shifts, or demographic pressures. Preparation insulates against shocks. Adaptability allows course correction mid shock. Reciprocity sustains relationships through shocks. Accountability ensures learning from shocks rather than repeating errors. Together, these form a robust framework for an uncertain future. Men have largely adopted this framework through necessity and reflection. Women who do the same will find the path arduous but navigable. Those who refuse face prolonged exposure to the elements of a colder season. The season itself carries no malice, it simply operates according to laws of cause, effect, incentive, and consequence. Understanding those laws grants power to shape outcomes within their constraints. Ignoring them invites outcomes dictated by default settings, settings that currently favor the prepared over the presumptuous, the disciplined over the entitled, the builders over the demanders. The choice between those categories remains open daily, renewed with each sunrise and each decision. Daily renewal favors incremental progress over dramatic transformation because sustainable change accumulates through consistency rather than intensity. Intensity burns out, consistency endures. Endurance separates those who merely weather winter from those who use it to. Forge stronger foundations for whatever climate follows. Foundations built in adversity tend to withstand future tests better than those constructed in prosperity. Adversity strips away illusions, forces prioritization, reveals character, and rewards ingenuity. Women currently navigating this adversity have an opportunity, painful but real, to emerge with clarity and capability that previous comfort obscured. Men who already passed through their own version of this forge carry the resulting strength quietly, offering proof that deliberate effort yields lasting returns. Their quiet proof serves as silent invitation. The path exists, the tools are accessible, the price is consistent application. Accepting that invitation requires no permission from culture, government, or former partners, only commitment to oneself. Commitment to oneself, once framed as selfish in certain narratives, now reveals itself as prerequisite for healthy interdependence. Only those secure in their own provision can give generously without resentment, receive graciously without subservience, and depart gracefully without desperation. That security level remains the true measure of readiness for meaningful connection in the current environment. Achieving it demands time, repetition, humility, and relentless focus on controllable variables. Focus on controllables eliminates wasted energy on blame or wishful thinking. Eliminating waste accelerates progress. Acceleration compounds advantages until momentum becomes self sustaining. Self sustaining momentum marks the point where external circumstances lose their power to dictate internal states. Internal sovereignty, once achieved, becomes the ultimate hedge against any winter, broke or otherwise. It cannot be granted, borrowed, or demanded, only earned through daily choices aligned with long term reality. Reality currently demands exactly that earning process from a large cohort still adjusting to its terms. Adjustment proceeds unevenly. Some sprint toward sovereignty, others resist and prolong exposure. Most fall somewhere between. The distribution of outcomes will sharpen over the coming years, creating clearer stratification between those who adapted and those who did not. Stratification itself carries lessons about incentives and consequences that future generations may heed more readily than the current one did. Heeding lessons before crisis strikes prevents the hardest versions of those lessons. Prevention requires foresight, which itself requires willingness to question dominant narratives before they prove costly. That willingness proved scarce during prosperity. Scarcity breeds necessity. Necessity now drives the questioning, the pivoting, the rebuilding. Rebuilding done well produces not just survival, but a more grounded form of flourishing, one less dependent on applause, more anchored in capability, less vulnerable to withdrawal of support, because support starts from within. Within starts with the next choice, the next hour, the next paycheck allocated deliberately rather than reactively. Deliberate allocation compounds into deliberate lives. Deliberate lives weather seasons better than reactive ones. Weathering well-opened possibilities close to those still caught in reaction loops. Possibilities include deeper relationships built on mutual strength, creative pursuits freed from financial panic, legacy building through example rather than complaint, and quiet satisfaction in knowing one has met reality on its own terms and prevailed. Prevailing does not require perfection, only persistence, correction, and refusal to quit. Refusal to quit defines the difference between temporary hardship and permanent decline. Temporary hardship, handled correctly, becomes the forge for permanent strength. Permanent strength equips individuals to thrive regardless of who stays or leaves, who provides or withdraws, who approves or condemns. That equanimity represents the ultimate return on investment in self mastery. Investment continues daily with interest paid in resilience, clarity, freedom, and peace. Peace, once lost through external dependence, returns through internal command. Command requires practice. Practice requires patience. Patience requires faith that effort compounds even when results lag. Faith sustains effort during lags. Effort delivers results. Results reinforce faith. The cycle turns upward. Upward cycles create virtuous momentum that attracts opportunities, people, and circumstances aligned with strength rather than need. Alignment with strength produces healthier dynamics across domains: professional, social, relational, personal. Healthier dynamics reduce friction, increase efficiency, amplify returns. Amplified returns fund further investment in self mastery. The loop: self reinforcement marks escape from scarcity traps into self sustaining sufficiency. Sufficiency liberates attention from survival toward creation, contribution, exploration, creation, contribution. Exploration enrich life beyond mere endurance. Enrichment becomes possible only after endurance secures the foundation. Foundation secured, the view opens wider. Wider views reveal new horizons previously obscured by immediate pressures. New horizons invite new goals, new skills, new connections, all chosen from abundance rather than desperation. Choice from abundance yields higher quality outcomes. Higher quality outcomes reinforce the foundation. Reinforcement solidifies sovereignty. Sovereignty completes the arc from entitlement through adversity to earned autonomy. Earned autonomy stands as the enduring prize of navigating winter successfully. Success leaves markers: reduced debt, increased savings, marketable skills, stable housing, improved health, calmer mind, genuine relationships free of hidden ledgers. These markers signal arrival at a new equilibrium, one more resilient, more honest, more sustainable than the previous one built on borrowed time and unexamined assumptions. Arrival invites reflection on the journey. What was learned? What was discarded? What was gained that could not have been obtained without the pressure? Pressure, in retrospect, serves as the reluctant teacher that the comfort rarely equals. Comfort breeds complacency. Pressure breeds competence. Competence endures. Endurance through pressure produces stories worth telling, not of victimhood, but of transformation. Transformation inspires others still mid journey. Inspiration multiplies impact beyond individual outcomes. Collective impact shapes culture incrementally, nudging norms toward reciprocity, accountability, preparation. Nudged norms reduce future winter severity by fostering proactive generations. Proactive generations inherit stronger foundations. Stronger foundations support broader flourishing. Flourishing closes the circle, turning hardship into legacy. Legacy outlasts seasons. Seasons change. Preparation endures. The progression toward earned autonomy reshapes not only individual trajectories, but also the subtle architecture of everyday social interactions that once relied on unspoken assumptions about gender roles and mutual expectations. In public spaces, casual encounters between men and women have noticeably cooled, with fewer instances of unsolicited compliments, holding doors as a default courtesy, or light conversation initiated by strangers. These micro withdrawals accumulate into a perceptible chill that many women describe as isolating, even in crowded urban environments like New York subways during rush hour or coffee shops filled with remote workers. The absence of ambient friendliness leaves interactions feeling transactional rather than human, forcing reliance on pre existing networks or digital platforms that often amplify superficiality instead of connection. Men, having internalized repeated messages that their presence or attention could be unwelcome or burdensome, default to neutrality, eyes forward, headphones in, minimal engagement unless directly addressed with clear intent. Neutrality protects against misinterpretation while preserving personal energy for pursuits that yield tangible returns. This protective stance extends to professional settings where mixed gender collaboration once included informal mentorship, after work drinks, or casual problem solving over lunch. Those informal channels have narrowed, replaced by strictly business communication that limits knowledge transfer and networking opportunities for everyone involved. Women in male dominated fields report feeling more visible scrutiny and less organic inclusion, while men in female dominated sectors note reduced willingness to go beyond required duties. The overall effect erodes the social lubricant that once smoothed workplace friction and fostered innovation through cross pollination of perspectives. Innovation suffers when trust deficits limit candid exchange, productivity plateaus when extra effort no longer feels reciprocal. Reciprocity, once assumed, now demands explicit negotiation, adding friction to systems already strained by remote hybrid models and economic uncertainty. Friction accumulates as inefficiency, slower career advancement for those lacking strong internal sponsors, and higher turnover among workers seeking environments with better cultural fit. Cultural fit increasingly means alignment with demonstrated values of contribution, reliability, and low drama presence rather than surface level charisma or appearance. Appearance, long a currency in social and professional capital, loses potency when financial realities force prioritization of function over form. Women who once invested heavily in wardrobe rotations, seasonal updates, and trend alignment discover that competence and results command attention more reliably than aesthetics in resource constrained environments. The shift favors understated professionalism, clean, durable clothing that withstands daily wear without constant replacement, freeing mental and monetary resources for skill development and networking focused on substance. Substance driven networking builds longer lasting alliances because it rests on shared achievements rather than transient impressions. Shared achievements create common ground that survives economic downturns better than shared tastes or appearances. Common ground becomes the new foundation for both platonic and romantic possibilities, though romantic possibilities remain sparse while men continue prioritizing personal sovereignty. Sovereignty allows men to approach potential partnerships from curiosity rather than necessity, evaluating compatibility through extended observation rather than rushed commitment. Extended observation reveals patterns invisible in accelerated courtship, consistency under stress, financial habits, emotional regulation during disagreement, willingness to compromise without scorekeeping. These patterns predict long term viability more accurately than initial chemistry or curated profiles. Chemistry fades, patterns endure. Women who understand this recalibrate their own presentation accordingly, emphasizing reliability through actions, transparency about circumstances, and proactive problem solving instead of passive expectation. Proactive problem solving signals adult capability, a quality increasingly prized in any partnership, whether business or personal. Capability attracts capability, creating virtuous selection effects where high functioning individuals cluster together over time. Clustering produces environments with higher baseline trust, lower transaction costs, and greater collective resilience against external shocks. Resilience emerges as the defining advantage in an era of accelerating change. Shocks arrive in waves, layoffs triggered by another round of AI implementation, sudden rent increases following local zoning changes, medical emergencies without adequate coverage, supply chain disruptions inflating basic goods. Each wave tests existing buffers. Buffers consist of liquid savings covering 6 to 12 months of lean expenses, diversified income streams, reducing single point failure risk, portable skills, marketable across industries and geographies, physical health sufficient to withstand temporary hardship, and emotional regulation strong enough to maintain decision quality under duress. Building these buffers requires years of consistent deferral of gratification, skipping vacations to pay down principal, choosing free skill courses over paid entertainment, walking instead of ride sharing to preserve cash flow, meal prepping instead of delivery apps, saying no to social invitations that carry hidden costs. Deferral feels restrictive until the first major shock arrives and the buffer absorbs it without panic. Absorption without panic preserves options, negotiating from strength rather than desperation, pivoting careers without immediate financial collapse, maintaining dignity in negotiations with landlords or creditors. Dignity preserved during hardship accelerates recovery because it prevents secondary damage from shame spirals or self sabotaging behavior. Recovery speed determines whether a setback becomes a temporary detour or a permanent downgrade. Permanent downgrades lock individuals into lower socioeconomic tiers with reduced access to quality education for any children. Poor neighborhoods with higher crime exposure, limited health care leading to untreated conditions, and social circles constrained by similar economic realities. Upward mobility from those tiers demands exponentially more effort than maintaining position from higher starting points. Effort required scales with depth of hole dug by prior choices. Choices accumulate consequences geometrically rather than linearly. Small daily deviations from discipline compound into structural disadvantages difficult to reverse without heroic intervention. Heroic intervention, extreme frugality bordering on deprivation, multiple jobs leading to burnout, relocation sacrificing support networks, succeeds for some but breaks others. Breaking produces long term health costs that offset short term gains. Sustainable ascent favors steady compounding over dramatic leaps. 1% daily improvement sustained over years outpaces sporadic bursts followed by regression. 1% daily improvement looks like reading industry reports during commute time, practicing technical interview questions 10 minutes nightly, automating savings transfers immediately after payday, tracking expenses in real time rather than monthly reviews. Declining impulse purchases by implementing 24-hour waiting periods. These micro habits require minimal willpower once routinized, yet produce outsized results through consistency. Consistency separates those who plateau from those who accelerate. Acceleration creates distance that becomes self perpetuating. Higher earnings fund better tools in education. Better tools increase efficiency. Increased efficiency frees time for further acceleration. The flywheel effect rewards early movers most heavily because starting momentum matters more than raw talent in competitive environments. Early movers in the current landscape include women who recognized warning signs during the initial waves of withdrawal and pivoted before necessity forced their hand. They built buffers during relative prosperity, acquired adjacent skills while jobs remained stable, reduced lifestyle inflation before inflation eroded purchasing power, cultivated networks based on mutual value rather than extraction. Their head start translates into options, relocating to growth regions, launching micro businesses, negotiating from positions of security rather than scarcity. Options compound into freedom. Freedom enables experimentation without catastrophic risk. Experimentation drives innovation at the personal level, testing side hustles, exploring relocation, building online communities around practical survival strategies, mentoring others still in transition. Mentoring closes feedback loops, reinforcing personal mastery while creating social capital that yields future opportunities. Social capital built on demonstrated help outlasts capital built on superficial charm. Help given freely during others' hardship earns loyalty stronger than any transactional exchange. Loyalty manifests in referrals, collaborations, emotional support during future downturns, and collective bargaining power when negotiating with institutions. Institutions respond differently to organized groups than to isolated individuals. Organized women pooling resources for bulk purchases, shared legal consultations, or group applications for training programs extract better terms than solitary applicants. Better terms preserve capital for reinvestment, accelerating the flywheel further. Flywheel momentum shifts entire trajectories from defensive survival to offensive growth. Growth opens doors previously invisible. Advanced certifications leading to higher wage roles, equity participation in startups formed within networks, real estate investments through pooled capital, international remote work enabling geographic arbitrage. Geographic arbitrage, living in lower cost regions while earning salaries tied to high cost cities, multiplies purchasing power dramatically. Dramatic multiplication allows accelerated debt elimination, faster asset accumulation, earlier semi retirement options, or funding for entrepreneurial ventures. Entrepreneurial ventures carry risk, but also unlimited upside when aligned with emerging needs. Emerging needs in this landscape include practical education on financial independence, mental health support tailored to economic stress, community building services for single adults navigating isolation, affordable skill training platforms bypassing traditional credentials. Women who identify these needs and build solutions capture value while solving real problems. Solving real problems generates intrinsic satisfaction alongside extrinsic rewards. Intrinsic satisfaction sustains effort during inevitable setbacks. Setbacks remain inevitable. Markets fluctuate. Technologies obsolete. Skills overnight. Personal circumstances intervene. Resilience forged in earlier hardship equips individuals to treat setbacks as data rather than defeat. Data informs iteration. Iteration improves outcomes. Improved outcomes reinforce belief in agency. Agency belief scales effort upward. Upward scaling effort closes gaps faster than linear progress would predict. Gaps close across multiple dimensions simultaneously: financial, professional, emotional, physical, relational. Relational gaps prove slowest to close because trust rebuilds logarithmically slower than it erodes. Logarithmic rebuilding requires patience matched with consistent demonstration of changed behavior. Changed behavior means showing up reliably, communicating directly without games, contributing value without keeping score, respecting boundaries without resentment. Respecting boundaries earns reciprocal respect, creating space for authentic connection rather than guarded transaction. Authentic connection, when it occurs, carries depth absent in earlier dynamics built on unequal power. Depth sustains through challenges. Superficiality collapses under pressure. Pressure tests every bond. Bonds that survive pressure strengthen disproportionately. Strengthened bonds become force multipliers in collective endeavors, joint ventures, family formation if chosen, community leadership roles. Leadership emerges naturally from demonstrated competence and character rather than positional authority. Character reveals itself most clearly during adversity. Adversity, therefore, serves as the ultimate filter for relationships of all kinds. Filtering produces higher quality networks over time. Higher quality networks amplify individual capability through shared knowledge, opportunities, emotional scaffolding. Emotional scaffolding reduces burnout risk, preserving energy for sustained effort. Sustained effort drives long term compounding. Compounding turns modest beginnings into substantial outcomes. Substantial outcomes shift life trajectories from precarity to security. Security enables generosity without depletion. Generosity from security creates positive externalities, mentoring ripples, community investment, cultural contributions that benefit beyond the individual. Benefits beyond the individual influence broader societal direction. Societal direction gradually tilts toward models that reward preparation, reciprocity, accountability. Rewarded models self replicate through example and incentive. Example proves possibility, incentive aligns behavior. Alignment scales adoption. Scaled adoption normalizes new norms. New norms reduce future cohort exposure to similar winters by embedding foresight earlier in life stages. Earlier, embedding prevents severity of future reckonings. Prevention through foresight represents the highest leverage outcome of current hardship. Hardship, therefore, carries latent potential for collective upgrade when processed constructively. Constructive processing requires narrative reframing. From victimhood to agency, from loss to lesson, from blame to responsibility. Responsibility unlocks power previously ceded to external forces. Reclaimed power redirects toward creation rather than complaint. Creation generates value. Value attracts resources. Attracted resources fund further creation. Further creation scales impact. Scaled impact reshapes environments. Reshaped environments favor those who contributed to reshaping. Contribution earns stake in the new order. Stake secures position against future cycles. Future cycles will arrive. History guarantees change. Change favors the anti-fragile, those who gain from volatility rather than merely survive it. Anti-fragility builds through exposure to small, survivable stressors that stimulate adaptation. Current stressors, while large, force rapid adaptation in those who engage rather than evade. Engagement produces anti-fragile traits: diversified income, robust health habits, wide skill sets, strong character, flexible mindset. Flexible mindset treats uncertainty as opportunity rather than threat. Opportunity mindset spots openings invisible to threat mindset. Openings include emerging industries, underserved markets, technological niches, demographic shifts, creating new demand. Demand creates value capture possibilities for early entrants. Early entrants with anti-fragile foundations capture disproportionate share. Disproportionate share funds, legacy building, education funds, real estate portfolios, business equity, philanthropic initiatives. Legacy building shifts focus from personal survival to intergenerational impact. Intergenerational impact compounds societal resilience. Societal resilience dampens amplitude of future disruptions. Dampened disruptions allow more predictable planning horizons. Predictable horizons reward long term thinking. Long term thinking reinforces anti fragile behaviors. Behaviors institutionalize into cultural defaults. Cultural defaults determine default outcomes for next generations. Next generations inherit either upgraded defaults or lingering vulnerabilities depending on current choices. Current choices center on whether to treat winter as terminal decline or transformative crucible. Crucible treatment extracts strength from pressure. Strength extracted becomes permanent asset. Permanent assets endure beyond seasons. Endurance beyond seasons marks true sovereignty. Sovereignty frees attention for higher pursuits: philosophy, art, science, service, exploration. Higher pursuits enrich existence beyond material security. Enrichment completes human potential once survival secures. Survival secured, potential unlocks. Unlocked potential radiates outward. Radiating outward influences environments positively. Positive influence accelerates collective upgrade. Collective upgrade closes the arc from individual reckoning to systemic evolution. Evolution proceeds incrementally through millions of small decisions aligned with reality. Reality rewards alignment relentlessly. Relentless reward favors the aligned. Alignment requires continuous calibration. Calibration demands attention. Attention paid yields wisdom. Wisdom applied produces mastery. Mastery sustained creates exemplars. Exemplars inspire imitation. Imitation scales transformation. Transformation sustained reshapes world incrementally. Incremental reshaping outlasts revolutionary attempts because it works with human nature rather than against it. Human nature responds to incentives, consequences, examples, narratives. Current narrative shifts from entitlement to accountability. Accountability narrative gains traction through lived outcomes. Lived outcomes provide undeniable evidence. Undeniable evidence overcomes resistance over time. Time remains the ultimate arbiter. Arbiter favors persistence. Persistence wins by default when alternatives exhaust themselves. Exhaustion removes competitors. Remaining competitors strengthen through attrition. Strengthened competitors dominate subsequent cycles. Dominance establishes new baseline. New baseline raises expectations for all. Raised expectations drive further adaptation. Adaptation becomes perpetual. Perpetual adaptation defines the post winter equilibrium. Equilibrium balances autonomy with selective interdependence. Selective interdependence maximizes mutual benefit while minimizing exploitation risk. Minimized exploitation restores trust. Restored trust enables deeper collaboration. Deeper collaboration unlocks synergies unavailable in isolation. Synergies amplify collective capability. Amplified capability solves larger problems. Larger problems solved create abundance. Abundance reduces scarcity driven conflict. Reduced conflict frees energy for creation. Creation generates more abundance. Abundance cycle self reinforces. Self reinforcing abundance stabilizes society against future winters. Stabilization allows focus on flourishing rather than survival. Flourishing encompasses beauty, meaning, connection, contribution, transcendence. Transcendence moves beyond material concerns toward questions of purpose, legacy, ultimate reality. Ultimate reality questions return when basics secure. Basics secured through prior effort. Effort originated in adversity. Adversity, therefore, serves as reluctant catalyst for higher development. Higher development redeems suffering by extracting meaning from it. Meaning extracted transforms pain into purpose. Purpose directs future effort. Directed effort produces results aligned with deeper values. Aligned results satisfy intrinsically. Intrinsic satisfaction sustains motivation indefinitely. Indefinite motivation powers continuous evolution. Continuous evolution ensures relevance in changing world. Relevance secures position. Position secured enables influence. Influence shapes direction. Direction shaped toward wisdom compounds across generations. Compounded wisdom elevates collective consciousness. Elevated consciousness reduces needless suffering. Reduced suffering frees humanity for greater pursuits. Greater pursuits define civilization's trajectory. Trajectory bends toward light when grounded in hard won lessons. Lessons currently taught through winter's curriculum. Curriculum rigorous, impartial, unforgiving. Mastery of curriculum yields graduation onto new phase. New phase characterized by chosen rather than imposed conditions. Chosen conditions reflect internal command. Internal command marks completion of cycle. Cycle completion invites reflection on journey's necessity. Necessity apparent in hindsight. Hindsight reveals every pressure served purpose. Purpose served justifies ordeal. Ordeal endured produces strength disproportionate to cost. Disproportionate strength becomes gift carried forward. Gift carried forward benefits others. Others benefit, pay gift forward. Paying forward multiplies original effort exponentially. Exponential multiplication transforms individual awakening into cultural renaissance. Renaissance emerges quietly through countless personal victories. Personal victories aggregate into undeniable shift. Undeniable shift marks end of old era, beginning of next. Next era builds on foundations laid in crucible. Crucible graduates inherit task of stewardship. Stewardship requires vigilance against complacency. Complacency invites regression. Regression avoided through perpetual learning. Perpetual learning sustains renaissance. Renaissance sustained elevates human potential. Elevated potential realizes possibilities once deemed utopian. Utopian possibilities grounded in reality become achievable. Achievable reality rewards those who paid tuition through hardship. Hardship paid yields infinite return when compounded through generations. Generations inherit upgraded starting conditions. Upgraded conditions accelerate progress. Accelerated progress shortens path to collective flourishing. Collective flourishing realizes latent human capacity. Latent capacity awakens when survival pressure lifts. Pressure lifted through prior mastery. Mastery achieved in winter. Winter therefore serves as paradoxical blessing. Blessing recognized only after passage. While passage complete, gratitude emerges. Gratitude fuels generosity. Generosity strengthens bonds. Strengthened bonds reinforce cycle. Cycle continues upward. Upward continuation defines enduring legacy. Legacy endures because rooted in truth tested by fire. Fire tested truth withstands future tests. Future tests met with confidence born of prior victory. Prior victory remembered. Memory sustains resolve. Resolve carries through seasons. Seasons change. Resolve remains. Remaining resolve ensures continuity. Continuity preserves gains. Preserved gains compound. Compounded gains elevate all. Elevation reaches toward horizon, once distant. Horizon approached through accumulated steps. Accumulated steps taken daily. Daily steps continue. Continuation writes next chapter. Next chapter authored by those who learned winter's lessons. Lessons learned become wisdom shared. Wisdom shared lights path for others. Path lighted shortens journey for followers. Shortened journey accelerates collective ascent. Ascent measured not in material alone, but in depth, meaning connection. Depth achieved through reflection. Reflection deepened by hardship. Hardship navigated produces wisdom. Wisdom applied creates better world incrementally. Incremental creation outlasts dramatic upheaval. Outlasting defines true power. True power quiet, persistent, compounding. Compounding power shapes destiny. Destiny shaped by choices made under pressure. Choices made determine inheritance left. Inheritance left determines starting line for next runners. Next runners inherit either advantage or deficit based on current decisions. Decisions aggregate into direction. Direction set now influences century ahead. Century ahead holds possibilities unimaginable from current vantage. Possibilities unlocked by disciplined response to present reality. Present reality demands action aligned with consequences. Consequences teach faster than theory. Theory absorbed through lived consequence accelerates learning. Accelerated learning shortens adaptation lag. Shortened lag preserves options. Preserved options enable choice. Choice exercised wisely compounds advantage. Advantage used for elevation rather than domination creates positive sum outcomes. Positive sum outcomes benefit all parties. Benefit shared sustains cooperation. Sustained cooperation unlocks larger scale achievements. Larger scale achievements solve existential challenges. Solved challenges free humanity for cosmic questions. Cosmic questions return focus to meaning beyond survival. Meaning pursued collectively elevates species. Elevation marks culmination of winter's long arc. Arc begun in entitlement, continued through reckoning, resolved in mastery. Mastery earned, redeems entire sequence. Redemption complete, story continues forward. Forward movement carries momentum of prior effort. Effort invested never wasted when compounded. Compounded effort becomes foundation for infinite potential. Infinite potential awaits activation. Activation requires continued alignment with reality. Reality remains teacher. Teacher instructs impartially. Impartial instruction ensures progress for those who listen. Listening requires humility. Humility cultivated in hardship endures. Endurance through humility produces grace. Grace enables compassionate leadership. Compassionate leadership guides without coercion. Guidance without coercion inspires voluntary alignment. Voluntary alignment scales transformation organically. Organic scaling outlasts forced change. Outlasting change reshapes culture permanently. Permanent reshaping toward reciprocity, accountability, preparation, meaning. Meaning centered culture withstands shocks better than pleasure centered one. Shock resistance preserves gains across centuries. Preservation across centuries defines civilization success. Success measured by sustained flourishing of descendants. Descendants flourish when ancestors paid necessary prices. Prices paid in current winter by future spring. Spring arrives after winter endured. Endured winter produces fertile soil. Fertile soil grows stronger trees. Stronger trees shelter future generations. Shelter provided enables their own ascent. Ascent continues cycle. Cycle unbroken through conscious participation. Conscious participation marks evolution from reaction to creation. Creation defines next era. Era defined by those who master prior one. Mastery complete, torch passed. Torch carried forward illuminates path ahead. Path ahead opens wider with each step taken in alignment. Alignment sustained yields destiny authored rather than endured. Authored destiny reflects deliberate will. Deliberate will forged in fire emerges unbreakable. Unbreakable will shapes world according to vision. Vision clarified through trial. Trial passed grants authority earned. Earned authority commands respect naturally. Natural respect fosters harmony. Harmony amplifies collective power. Collective power directed wisely achieves greatness. Greatness defined not by domination but by elevation of all within reach. Elevation within reach begins with self. Self elevated radiates outward. Outward radiation influences nearest first. Nearest influence become carriers. Carriers spread influence further. Further spread scales impact geometrically. Geometric scaling transforms societies quietly yet irreversibly. Irreversible transformation marks true turning point. Turning point reached through accumulated daily choices. Daily choices continue shaping trajectory. Trajectory bends toward light when choices align with truth. Truth revealed in winter's stark curriculum. Curriculum mastered, graduation earned, graduation opens new semester. New semester begins now. The arrival of spring in this metaphorical cycle does not announce itself with fanfare or sudden warmth, but emerges gradually through the quiet accumulation of individual victories that begin to alter the surrounding atmosphere. Each woman who successfully transitions from survival mode into stable self sufficiency contributes an incremental shift in the collective energy once dominated by complaint and desperation. These transitions happen in ordinary settings. A former office administrator, now working as a certified solar panel installer, earning steady union wages, a marketing coordinator who relocated to a mid sized Midwestern city and now manages remote logistics for an e commerce firm while paying off her last credit card. A teacher who supplemented her income with evening coding boot camps and landed a junior developer role at a fintech startup. Their stories circulate in private group chats, local meetups, and niche online forums rather than viral feeds. Yet the consistency of the pattern creates a subtle undercurrent of possibility that counters the earlier tide of panic. Possibility, once extinguished by repeated setbacks, reignites when enough people demonstrate that the path exists and can be walked without superhuman effort. Walking that path requires accepting trade offs previously viewed as unacceptable. Trading urban excitement for affordable housing in secondary markets, accepting slower career progression in exchange for debt freedom, choosing functional reliability over aesthetic perfection in daily presentation. Trade offs, once resisted as diminishment, reveal themselves as strategic reallocations that unlock greater long term freedom. Freedom measured not in Instagram worthy moments, but in the ability to say no without fear of immediate collapse, to pursue interest without financial penalty, to rest without guilt that bills will go unpaid. Rest becomes possible when baseline security solidifies. Solidified security allows experimentation with higher risk, higher reward activities, launching small service businesses, investing in dividend stocks with disciplined dollar cost averaging, pursuing creative side projects that may evolve into primary income streams. Experimentation at this stage carries lower downside because buffers absorb failures. Failures treated as tuition rather than catastrophe accelerate learning curves. Accelerated learning curves compress the time needed to reach competence in new domains. Competence in new domains opens additional revenue channels, diversifying risk further. Diversified risk reduces vulnerability to sector specific downturns or technological obsolescence. Reduced vulnerability creates psychological space for bigger picture thinking, legacy planning, community investment, personal development beyond career metrics. Bigger picture thinking shifts identity from survivor to architect. Architects design rather than react. Design requires vision informed by hard data about what actually works in the current environment. Data points accumulate through direct experience and shared observation. Trades pay more reliably than many white collar paths for the next decade. Remote work favors those with proven output over credentials. Geographic mobility multiplies effective income faster than salary negotiations. Minimalism compounds wealth quicker than incremental raises. Observation turns into applied strategy, targeting certifications with clear employer demand signals, building emergency funds covering 12 months minimum, maintaining lean living structures even after income rises, prioritizing skill portability over location loyalty. Strategy executed consistently produces measurable progress, net worth crossing zero, then positive thresholds, monthly cash flow turning positive after years of negative, health markers trending upward as stress related symptoms recede. Progress tracked visibly reinforces commitment during inevitable plateaus. Plateaus occur when systems stabilize, but before momentum reaches escape velocity. Escape velocity arrives when passive income streams begin covering a meaningful portion of baseline expenses, when professional reputation generates inbound opportunities rather than constant outbound applications, when social proof from visible stability attracts higher caliber relationships. Higher caliber relationships form on foundations of mutual independence rather than complementary dependence. Independence allows vulnerability without fear of exploitation. Vulnerability without exploitation risk enables genuine intimacy. Genuine intimacy produces deeper satisfaction than transactional or need based arrangements ever could. Deeper satisfaction fuels continued discipline because the rewards extend beyond material metrics into existential. Fulfillment. Fulfillment reduces the seductive pull of old habits. Impulse spending, validation seeking through appearance, short term gratification over long term positioning. Reduced pull strengthens boundary enforcement. Strong boundaries protect newly built assets from erosion. Protected assets compound undisturbed. Undisturbed compounding accelerates wealth velocity. Wealth velocity creates options previously unimaginable. Sabbaticals for skill mastery. Angel investments in promising ventures. Relocation to optimal climates without employment constraints. Philanthropy targeting root causes rather than symptoms. Philanthropy from personal abundance carries different weight than from institutional or performative giving. Personal giving, informed by lived experience, targets leverage points effectively, funding trade scholarships for displaced workers, supporting financial literacy programs in underserved communities, backing mentorship networks that accelerate transitions for others still in the crucible. Backing accelerates collective escape velocity. Collective escape velocity shifts the center of gravity away from scarcity narratives toward sufficiency models. Sufficiency models normalize delayed gratification as standard practice rather than exception. Standard practice embeds habits early, teaching children budgeting before allowance spending, emphasizing trade skills alongside academics, modeling frugality as strength rather than deprivation. Early embedding reduces future generational exposure to similar winters. Reduced exposure preserves societal resources for advancement rather than recovery. Advancement focuses on breakthroughs in energy, biotechnology, space infrastructure, artificial general intelligence alignment. Breakthroughs require concentrated talent, unburdened by survival stress. Unburdened talent emerges when baseline security becomes widespread. Widespread security follows mass adoption of proven personal strategies. Proven strategies spread through visible success stories rather than theoretical advocacy. Visible success stories gain credibility when narrated without exaggeration or triumphalism. Credibility invites emulation. Emulation creates critical mass. Critical mass tips cultural defaults. Tipped defaults reshape incentive structures. Employers competing for proven competence rather than credentials, dating markets rewarding demonstrated responsibility over performative status, communities valuing contribution over consumption, reshaped incentives align behavior with long term flourishing. Aligned behavior reduces systemic friction. Reduced friction increases overall efficiency. Increased efficiency generates surplus. Surplus funds, research, infrastructure, cultural production. Cultural production explores meaning beyond material accumulation. Meaning exploration addresses the existential vacuum left when survival pressures lift. Vacuum filled with purpose driven pursuits sustains motivation across longer horizons. Longer horizons enable multi decade projects, ecosystem restoration, intergenerational wealth architecture, scientific discovery requiring patience. Patience rewarded when baseline needs secure. Security achieved through prior discipline. Discipline forged in adversity. Adversity therefore functions as evolutionary pressure, selecting for traits that thrive in uncertainty. Adaptability, resourcefulness, integrity under pressure, capacity for delayed reward. Selected traits propagate through example and teaching. Propagation strengthens population level resilience. Resilient populations handle volatility with minimal disruption. Minimal disruption maintains institutional continuity. Continuity allows specialization and cooperation at scale. Scale cooperation solves coordination problems previously intractable. Intractable problems solved free cognitive resources for novel challenges. Novel challenges drive progress along exponential curves. Exponential curves in technology amplify human capability asymmetrically. Amplified capability raises carrying capacity for civilization. Raised carrying capacity supports larger, healthier, more educated populations. Larger educated populations accelerate innovation velocity. Innovation velocity shortens time between breakthroughs. Shortened intervals compound knowledge exponentially. Compounded knowledge unlocks new domains. Fusion energy mastery, cognitive enhancement, off world habitats. Unlocked domains expand frontier. Expanded frontier resets scarcity assumptions. Reset assumptions enable post scarcity cultural experiments. Post scarcity experiments test human nature absent material pressure. Tested nature reveals whether virtues persist without necessity. Persistence of virtues determines whether abundance produces flourishing or decadence. Flourishing requires deliberate cultivation of character traits once enforced by hardship, humility, gratitude, responsibility, courage. Cultivation succeeds when institutions reinforce rather than undermine those traits. Institutions shaped by individuals who mastered prior hardship embed reinforcement mechanisms. Embedded mechanisms normalize excellence as baseline expectation. Baseline excellence raises collective ceiling. Raised ceiling invites exploration of human potential's upper limits. Upper limits probed reveal new plateaus. New plateaus demand fresh adaptation. Fresh adaptation cycles continue. Continuation ensures species level anti fragility. Anti fragility allows thriving amid cosmic scale uncertainties, solar variability, asteroid risks, interstellar expansion challenges. Cosmic uncertainties met with accumulated wisdom rather than panic. Accumulated wisdom originates in micro-level decisions made during earthly winters. Winters therefore serve as training grounds for larger arenas. Training completed produces graduates equipped for scale. Scale applied wisely advances civilization along sustainable vectors. Sustainable vectors balance expansion with stewardship. Stewardship preserves habitability for successors. Preserved habitability extends timeline for consciousness development. Extended timeline allows deeper understanding of existence, fundamentals, consciousness nature, information conservation across physical regimes, potential multiversal architecture. Deeper understanding reframes current struggles as trivial within vast context. Trivial reframing reduces emotional weight of temporary hardship. Reduced weight frees energy for constructive action. Constructive action compounds forward. Forward compounding stretches across millennia when viewed from cosmic vantage. Millennia scale perspective humbles immediate concerns while affirming their instrumental value. Instrumental value lies in forging necessary traits. Traits forged enable next evolutionary threshold. Threshold crossed opens domains currently conceptual. Conceptual domains made concrete through disciplined iteration. Iteration rooted in reality-tested methods. Reality-tested methods proven in personal crucibles. Crucibles distributed across population create broad capability base. Broad base supports specialized excellence at edges. Edge excellence drives frontier movement. Frontier movement expands possibility space. Expanded space accommodates diverse expressions of human potential. Diverse expressions enrich collective experience. Enriched experience deepens appreciation for existence. Appreciation fuels continued stewardship. Stewardship sustains cycle. Cycle, unbroken carry species toward whatever culmination awaits conscious matter in universe. Culmination unknown, yet approachable through persistent alignment with discovered principles. Principles distilled from hardship include reality impartial, effort compounds, reciprocity outperforms extraction, preparation trumps entitlement, meaning emerges from mastery rather than avoidance. Mastery pursued diligently transforms adversity into advantage. Advantage leveraged wisely benefits beyond self. Benefit extended creates virtuous loops. Virtuous loops scale impact geometrically. Geometric impact reshapes conditions for all within sphere. Sphere expansion continues through replication. Replication occurs via teaching, modeling, institutional design. Institutional design reflects learned lessons. Learned lessons codify into norms. Norms harden into defaults. Defaults determine trajectory probabilities. Trajectory probabilities favor paths chosen repeatedly. Repeated choice of mastery path biases future toward flourishing. Flourishing manifests as widespread capability realization. Capability realization unlocks latent creativity across domains. Latent creativity expressed produces cultural golden ages. Golden ages remembered as peaks. Peaks inspire subsequent generations. Inspiration motivates renewed discipline. Renewed discipline prepares for next winter. Next winter arrives inevitably. Inevitability met with readiness rather than surprise. Readiness minimizes damage. Minimized damage preserves accumulated gains. Preserved gains compound into higher baseline. Higher baseline shortens recovery period. Shortened recovery accelerates next ascent. Ascent reaches new heights. Heights achieved reveal broader vistas. Broader vistas expose additional challenges. Challenges met with Evolved Toolkit. Evolved Toolkit handles complexity more elegantly. Elegant handling conserves energy. Conserve energy redirected toward exploration. Exploration yields discovery. Discovery feeds back into toolkit refinement. Refinement cycle perpetuates progress. Perpetuated. Progress defines intelligent life signature. Signature recognizable across potential cosmic observers. Observers, if present, note resilience pattern. Resilience pattern correlates with survival probability in high variance environments. High variance environments select for anti-fragile systems. Anti-fragile systems thrive where fragile ones collapse. Collapse avoided through prior exposure. Prior exposure occurred in current winter phase. Phase navigated successfully graduates cohort. Graduated cohort carries pattern forward. Forward carriage ensures continuity. Continuity maintains thread of consciousness through epochs. Epochs unfold containing subcycles of expansion and contraction. Contraction phases test accumulated strength. Strength tested proves durability. Durability allows expansion resumption. Resumption carries further than previous peak. Further carriage compounds legacy. Legacy measured not in monuments, but in sustained capacity for wonder, creation, connection across time. Connection across time achieved through unbroken chain of disciplined individuals. Disciplined individuals emerge from crucibles embraced rather than evaded. Embraced crucibles produce tempered steel. Tempered steel withstands future forges. Future forges, inevitable. Inevitability welcomed as refinement opportunity. Opportunity seized advances whole. Whole advanced carries potential, realized incrementally. Incremental realization appears slow from inside, yet exponential from outside perspective. Exponential curve steepens when viewed retrospectively. Retrospective view affirms journey's logic. Logic traced back to initial painful choices. Choices made despite temptation to deny reality. Reality denial postpones reckoning. Postponed reckoning increases eventual severity. Severity teaches when gentle warnings ignored, gentle warnings abundant in prior era. Ignored warnings led to current curriculum. Curriculum rigorous yet fair. Fairness lies in universal application of consequences. Consequences navigated produce understanding. Understanding applied prevents repetition. Prevention saves future suffering. Saved suffering redirected toward creation. Creation enriches existence. Enrichment motivates continued navigation. Continued navigation sustains species project. Species project ongoing. Ongoing project requires participants at every level. Participants recruited through lived example most persuasive teacher. Persuasive teaching scales faster than coercion. Faster scaling accelerates adaptation. Accelerated adaptation shortens winter duration for marginal cases. Marginal cases rescued earlier preserve human capital. Preserved capital compounds societal wealth. Societal wealth measured in capability density. Density increased supports complexity handling. Complexity handled opens new possibility frontiers. Frontiers opened reset baseline assumptions repeatedly. Reset assumptions keep civilization dynamic. Dynamic civilization avoids stagnation traps. Stagnation traps end lineages. Lineage continuation preferred outcome. Preferred outcome biases selection toward adaptive traits. Adaptive traits currently favored realism, discipline, reciprocity, foresight, humility. Humility acknowledges limits while maximizing within them. Maximization within limits produces sustainable peaks. Sustainable peaks allow longer plateaus for consolidation. Consolidation embeds gains deeply. Deep embedding resists regression. Resistance to regression ensures ratchet effect. Ratchet effect advances net position across cycles. Net advance defines civilizational health. Health strong correlates with optimism grounded in evidence. Evidence-based optimism sustains effort. Sustained effort produces next round of evidence. Evidence accumulation creates virtuous epistemic loop. Epistemic loop refines models of reality. Refined models improve prediction accuracy. Improved prediction reduces downside risk. Reduced downside enables bolder upside pursuit. Bolder pursuit captures asymmetric opportunities. Asymmetric opportunities generate outsized returns. Outsized returns fund further refinement. Refinement cycle tightens. Tighten cycle accelerates progress velocity. Velocity increase shortens time to existential thresholds. Thresholds approached with accumulated wisdom minimize catastrophe risk. Minimized risk allows focus on positive trajectories. Positive trajectories converge toward states where suffering optional rather than structural. Optional suffering transforms into voluntary challenge for growth. Voluntary challenge preserves anti-fragility benefits without necessity. Benefits retained voluntarily mark highest development stage. Highest stage achieved through chain of prior necessities met successfully. Necessities met begin with individual decisions in moments of pressure. Pressure moments define character arcs. Character arcs aggregate into cultural narrative. Narrative shapes incentive landscape. Landscape shaped toward mastery produces more mastery. More mastery scales. Capability frontier. Frontier scaled expands moral circle through demonstrated capacity for care. Care demonstrated at scale enables planetary coordination. Planetary coordination solves coordination dilemmas. Solved dilemmas free resources for stellar projects. Stellar projects test species maturity. Maturity proven through sustained alignment with discovered principles. Principles remain simple yet profound. Face reality, act accordingly, compound effort, respect reciprocity, prepare relentlessly. Relentless preparation turns winter into springboard. Springboard launched propels towards summer abundance. Abundance managed wisely avoids decadence. Wisdom applied preserves gains. Preserved gains carry into autumn reflection. Reflection extracts lessons. Lessons transmitted ensure spring renewal. Renewal cycle continues. Continuation infinite until external termination or self-chosen transcendence. Transcendence option opens when material mastery complete. Complete mastery frees attention for ontological questions. Ontological questions pursued with same discipline forged earlier. Discipline applied to ultimate concerns yields insights unavailable under scarcity. Insights gained potentially alter trajectory fundamentally. Fundamental alteration possible only after prior foundations secure. Secure foundations built now. Now remains operative moment. Operative moment demands choice. Choice made determines branch taken. Branch taken shapes all downstream probabilities. Downstream probabilities favor mastery path overwhelmingly when chosen early. Early choice maximizes compounding window. Compounding window widest at present. Present seized writes history favorably. History written favorably inspires confidence in future branches. Confidence justified through demonstrated results. Demonstrated results close loop. Loop closed invites next opening. Opening begins with next breath, next decision, next allocation of limited attention. Attention directed toward reality yields truth. Truth embraced enables power. Power wielded responsibly creates beauty. Beauty recognized sustains motivation. Motivation sustained carries through. Through carried reaches beyond winter. Beyond winter lies possibility space, vast enough to contain every lesson learned and every potential yet unrealized. Unrealized potential awaits activation through continued alignment. Alignment maintained through vigilance born of hard experience. Experience hard yet invaluable. Invaluable experience becomes greatest asset carried forward. Asset carried compounds eternally when shared. Shared eternally defines civilization's true wealth. Wealth measured in wisdom density per capita. Density increased one individual at a time. Time individual invest returns multiplied across network effects. Network effects amplify single effort exponentially. Exponential amplification transforms quiet personal victories into cultural tectonic shifts. Tectonic shifts move slowly, yet irreversibly. Irreversibly, moved civilization finds itself on higher ground. Higher ground overlooks previous valleys with compassion rather than judgment. Compassion emerges from shared passage through same terrain. Shared passage binds despite surface differences. Binding creates resilience greater than sum of parts. Greater resilience faces future unknowns with equanimity. Equanimity allows clear seeing. Clear seeing spots opportunities amid threats. Opportunities seized advance position further. Further advance opens new seeing. New seeing discovers deeper layers. Deeper layers reveal interconnectedness previously obscured. Interconnectedness understood transforms competition into coordinated exploration. Coordinated exploration accelerates discovery rate. Accelerated discovery feeds back into capability enhancement. Enhancement loop self amplifies. Self amplification defines intelligent explosion threshold when unconstrained. Unconstrained threshold approached cautiously through prior discipline. Discipline ensures control rather than runaway. Controlled approach maximizes benefit while minimizing misalignment risk. Misalignment risk managed through embedded values tested in hardship. Tested values prove robust. Robust values guide safely through acceleration phases. Acceleration phases contain both promise and peril. Peril navigated successfully unlocks promise. Promise fulfilled realizes latent capacity. Latent capacity expressed creates golden threads through history. Golden threads weave narrative of ascent from scarcity to chosen abundance. Chosen abundance marks triumph over default entropy. Triumph earned through refusal to accept default. Refusal sustained across population produces phase change. Phase change complete, new equilibrium establishes. Equilibrium balances freedom with responsibility. Responsibility willingly embraced replaces external enforcement. External enforcement unnecessary when internal command present. Internal command achieved individually, then scaled culturally. Cultural scaling cements gains. Gains cemented allow focus shift toward transcendence questions. Transcendence questions answered through accumulated insight. Insight accumulated carries signature of fire forged wisdom. Wisdom forged in winter endures. Endurance ensures transmission. Transmission completes circle. Circle complete begins anew at higher octave. Higher octave sounds clearer note. Clearer note resonates further. Further resonance awakens more sleepers. Sleepers awaken join chorus. Chorus grows. Growth amplifies harmony. Harmony sustained drowns discord. Discord minimized allows coherent direction. Coherent direction steers toward light. Light approached reveals ever more to illuminate. Illumination, infinite process. Process participated joyfully when foundations secure. Foundations secure now through choices made. Choices made matter. Matter eternally in chain of consequence. Consequence chain extends forward. Forward extension carries hope grounded in effort. Effort continues. Continuation writes epic. Epic author daily. Daily authorship privilege earned through prior persistence. Persistence rewarded with authorship rights. Rights exercised, shape, ending unwritten yet. Unwritten ending invites full participation. Participation maximal when winter lessons integrated. Integration complete unlocks full agency. Full agency exercise wisely creates beauty lasting. Lasting beauty justifies entire journey. Journey justified Peace arrives, peace earned rests deeply. Deep rest rejuvenates for next movement. Next movement begins now. The quiet emergence of spring in this long arc does not erase the scars left by winter, but rather incorporates them into a more textured landscape where every hard earned gain carries the memory of its cost. Those memories serve as internal compasses, guiding decisions with a precision that comfort never taught. A woman who once spent half her income maintaining an appearance she believed necessary now looks at the same mirror and sees utility first. Hair tied back for practicality, clothes chosen for durability, and pockets rather than trends. Makeup reduced to sunscreen and lip balm because time once wasted on application now funds index fund contributions. That shift in mirror gaze reflects a deeper recalibration. Value assigned according to function and longevity instead of fleeting social currency. The same principle applies to time allocation. Hours previously consumed by scrolling through curated lives or debating online strangers redirect toward deliberate practice, reviewing technical documentation, running through mock interviews, building small automation scripts that save minutes, which compound into hours saved monthly. Compounded hours translate into accelerated mastery of tools that employers pay premiums for. SQL queries written fluently, Python scripts that clean datasets in seconds instead of days, Excel models replaced by Power BI dashboards that update live. Mastery demonstrated through portfolio projects rather than resumes changes the hiring conversation from credential verification to capability proof. Capability proof shortens interview cycles and increases offer acceptance rates because decision makers recognize immediate value rather than potential value. Immediate value commands higher starting compensation and faster promotions. Faster promotions accelerate income velocity. Income velocity applied with unchanged frugality produces exponential net worth growth relative to peers still trapped in lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep avoided becomes the single largest lever in personal finance when income begins rising. Avoiding it requires constant vigilance against hedonic adaptation, the psychological tendency to reset baseline happiness to new consumption levels. Vigilance takes form as written rules. Any raise or bonus first covers 3 months of living expenses in high yield savings before discretionary spending. New income brackets trigger automatic increases in savings rate rather than spending rate. Luxury purchases require 30-day waiting periods during which the desire often evaporates. Rules enforced create space between impulse and action. Space allows reflection. Reflection reveals whether the purchase solves a genuine problem or merely soothes temporary emotion. Temporary emotion soothed through consumption produces diminishing returns. Genuine problems solved through investment produce compounding returns. Compounding returns shift identity from consumer to owner. Owner mindset views money as seed capital rather than reward for labor. Seed capital planted in diversified assets, broad market ETFs, rental property down payments after rigorous cash flow analysis, peer to peer lending platforms vetted for default rates, grows independently of daily effort. Independent growth reduces dependency on employer goodwill or market timing for personal security. Reduced dependency increases negotiating leverage at work, ability to walk away from toxic environments, counter offer with data rather than hope, pursue entrepreneurial experiments without existential fear. Entrepreneurial experiments at this stage start small and low risk. Freelance consulting using newly mastered skills, digital product creation like budgeting templates or skill specific cheat sheets sold on platforms with minimal overhead, Local service businesses addressing unmet needs in secondary markets, mobile notary services, pressure washing fleets, specialized tutoring for trade certification exams. Small starts test assumptions with limited capital at stake. Limited capital at stake allows rapid iteration. Launch, measure, adjust, relaunch, or abandon within weeks rather than years. Rapid iteration compresses learning curves dramatically. Compressed learning curves turn novices into competent operators faster than traditional career ladders. Competent operators capture market share in niches ignored by larger players. Captured market share generates cash flow. Cash flow, reinvested intelligently, scales operation without proportional increase in personal hours worked. Scaled operation without proportional time commitment creates true leverage. True leverage marks transition from trading time for money to owning systems that produce money. Owned systems provide optionality, geographic freedom, schedule autonomy, ability to weather personal or macroeconomic disruptions. Disruptions remain inevitable. Recessions contract demand. Technologies obsolete certain niches. Health events interrupt capacity. But leverage cushions impact. Cushioned impact preserves capital base. Preserved capital base enables opportunistic buying during downturns, distressed real estate acquired at discounts, equipment purchased from failing competitors, talent hired when others freeze headcount. Opportunistic buying during downturns positions for outsized gains during recovery. Outsized gains during recovery compound advantage further. Further compounded advantage widens gap between those who prepared and those who did not. Widen gap manifests in visible lifestyle divergence. One group maintains modest but debt-free living with growing assets. The other struggles with renewed debt cycles despite higher nominal income. Visible divergence reinforces the original lesson. Preparation trumps reaction. Preparation mindset spreads through observation rather than preaching. Observation convinces faster than argument because results speak louder than rhetoric. Results shared authentically. Monthly net worth updates in private accountability groups. Transparent breakdowns of side hustle revenue streams. Before and after photos of relocated minimalist apartments create social proof that bypasses skepticism. Social proof lowers adoption barriers for hesitant observers. Lowered barriers accelerate contagion of disciplined habits. Contagion of disciplined habits creates microcultures within larger society. Microcultures demonstrate alternative equilibria. Communities where financial transparency replaces secrecy, mutual accountability replaces isolation, practical skill sharing replaces status competition. Alternative equilibria prove viability of different operating systems. Viability proven invites migration. Migration from default culture to microculture strengthens the new system. Strengthened system attracts more capable participants. More capable participants raise collective competence ceiling. Raised ceiling produces emergent capabilities. Group investment syndicates negotiating better terms than individuals. Shared legal resources reducing professional service costs. Collaborative product development distributing risk while pooling expertise. Emergent capabilities create flywheel momentum, distinct from individual flywheels. Collective flywheel spins faster because it harnesses network effects. Network effects amplify value nonlinearly. Each additional participant increases utility for all existing participants. Nonlinear increase attracts exponential growth until saturation or external constraint. Saturation delayed by continuous innovation within the network. New service offerings, expanded geographic reach, technological integration, improving coordination. Technological integration ranges from simple shared spreadsheets tracking group finances to custom apps for resource matching to blockchain based, transparent contribution ledgers for larger cooperatives. Integration reduces coordination friction. Reduced friction scales trust. Scaled trust enables larger commitments, joint ventures, community land trusts, mutual aid insurance pools covering health or income interruptions. Larger commitments distribute risk across more shoulders. Distributed risk lowers individual exposure. Lowered exposure encourages bolder experimentation. Bolder experimentation yields breakthroughs. Breakthroughs feed back into network advantage. Network advantage solidifies separation from mainstream precarity. Solidified separation allows focus on second order goals, child rearing environments emphasizing financial literacy and resilience, elder care models based on reciprocal obligation rather than institutional dependence, cultural production celebrating earned sovereignty rather than victimhood aesthetics. Second order goals shape next generation's default assumptions. Shaped assumptions determine starting conditions. Starting conditions set trajectory probabilities. Trajectory probabilities heavily weighted toward replication of successful patterns when modeled early. Early modeling occurs through daily observation of parental and community behavior. Daily observation imprints more powerfully than explicit instruction. Powerful imprinting creates generational ratchet effect. Ratchet effect advances baseline resilience across decades. Advanced baseline resilience dampens amplitude of future economic winters. Dampened amplitude preserves institutional capacity for large scale projects. Large scale projects, fusion commercialization, carbon capture deployment at gigaton scale, orbital infrastructure development require multi decade coordination and capital allocation. Capital allocation succeeds when private savings rates remain high enough to fund venture ecosystems. Venture ecosystems thrive when failure carries limited downside because personal buffers exist. Personal buffers widespread reduce social demand for safety net expansion at expense of growth investment. Growth investment accelerates technological progress. Technological progress lowers real cost of living across basics: energy, computation, materials, food production. Lowered real cost of living reduces structural scarcity. Reduced structural scarcity weakens entitlement psychology because survival pressure eases. Eased survival pressure allows cultural experimentation with voluntary simplicity rather than enforced austerity. Voluntary simplicity practiced widely creates headroom for meaning seeking activities, philosophy seminars, artistic collectives, scientific citizen research initiatives, spiritual retreats without material deprivation. Meaning seeking activities address the void left when consumption fails to satisfy deeper drives. Deeper drives, satisfied, produce sustained well being independent of external validation. Sustained well being reduces volatility in social dynamics. Reduced volatility stabilizes partnerships. Stabilized partnerships increase likelihood of intentional family formation. Intentional family formation with financially literate parents transmits advantage early. Early transmission compounds across generations. Compounded generational advantage creates compounding civilizational advantage. Civilizational advantage manifests as higher average capability, lower baseline suffering, greater capacity for collective projects. Greater capacity enables species level transitions, multi-planetary settlement preparation, longevity escape velocity research, consciousness uploading feasibility studies. Species level transitions demand aligned incentives across populations. Aligned incentives emerge when enough individuals internalize reciprocity and long term thinking. Internalization occurs through lived success of disciplined models. Lived success scales through demonstration rather than decree. Demonstration requires exemplars. Exemplars arise from current cohort navigating winter successfully. Successful navigation therefore serves dual purpose, personal liberation and civilizational prerequisite. Prerequisite fulfilled unlocks next developmental stage. Next stage characterized by abundance managed with wisdom rather than squandered through decadence. Wisdom applied manifests as institutional designs, rewarding foresight, penalizing extraction, celebrating contribution over consumption. Institutional designs evolve incrementally through trial and error within microcultures first. Trial within microcultures minimizes downside. Minimized downside allows bolder experiments. Bolder experiments yield institutional innovations scalable upward. Scalable innovations adopted by larger entities reshape default operating systems. Reshape defaults normalize behaviors once considered fringe. Normalized behaviors become invisible infrastructure. Invisible infrastructure determines default life outcomes. Default life outcomes heavily weighted toward flourishing when infrastructure rewards virtue. Virtue defined pragmatically, actions producing net positive over long horizons for self and others. Pragmatic virtue scales because it aligns self interest with collective interest. Aligned interests reduce zero sum conflict. Reduced zero sum conflict frees cognitive and material resources for positive sum creation. Positive sum creation generates surplus. Surplus reinvested intelligently produces accelerating returns. Accelerating returns shorten time to post material thresholds. Post material thresholds reached allow focus on questions of ultimate value, nature of qualia, possibility of substrate independent minds, ethical frameworks for superintelligent systems, meaning architectures in potentially infinite computational universes. Ultimate value questions pursued with rigor once reserved for survival problems. Rigor applied yields insights. Insights gained potentially reorder priorities fundamentally. Fundamental reordering possible only when lower order problems solved. Lower order problems solved through disciplined response to current conditions. Current conditions therefore function as necessary scaffolding for higher inquiry. Scaffolding dismantled only after structure self-supporting. Self-supporting structure stands as testament to effort invested during construction phase. Construction phase ongoing. Ongoing construction demands participation from every capable individual. Capable individuals multiplied through successful transmission of operating principles. Transmission occurs most effectively through visible results, combined with transparent methodology. Transparent methodology lowers replication cost. Lowered replication cost accelerates adoption curve. Adoption curve steepens when early majority observes late majority successes. Late majority successes create social permission for mainstream integration. Mainstream integration cements phase transition. Phase transition complete when winter narrative replaced by spring narrative in collective imagination. Replaced narrative shifts cultural gravity toward preparation as default rather than exception. Default preparation embeds anti-fragility at population level. Population level anti-fragility ensures continuity through volatility spikes. Volatility spikes inevitable across geologic, technologic, sociopolitical timescales. Spikes navigated with minimal loss preserve accumulated knowledge. Preserved knowledge carries forward. Forward carriage enables exponential growth in understanding. Exponential growth in understanding expands accessible reality envelope. Expanded envelope reveals new constraints and new freedoms simultaneously. New freedoms exploited wisely create next order capabilities. Next order capabilities reset game board. Reset game board invites new strategies. New strategies emerge from minds shaped by prior resets. Prior resets traceable to current winter crucible. Crucible therefore occupies pivotal position in long causal chain. Pivotal position elevates importance of individual choices made within it. Individual choices aggregate into collective trajectory. Collective trajectory determines probability distribution over possible futures. Probability distribution skewed toward desirable outcomes when choices align with discovered causal laws. Discovered causal laws, simple in essence, face facts squarely, act proportionally to evidence, compound small advantages relentlessly, honor reciprocity as optimal long term strategy, prioritize preparation over consolation, prioritization practice daily rewires default responses. Rewired defaults automate wise behavior. Automated wise behavior scales across contexts. Scaled behavior produces systemic change. Systemic change alters boundary conditions for subsequent generations. Altered boundary conditions raise floor while expanding ceiling. Raised floor reduces unnecessary suffering. Expanded ceiling accommodates greater realization of potential. Greater realization feeds back into boundary expansion. Feedback loop self amplifies. Self amplification defines intelligent civilization's signature pattern. Signature pattern recognizable whenever life escapes planetary cradle and begins reshaping surrounding volumes. Reshaping surrounding volumes requires mastery of local physics first. Local physics mastered through iterative experimentation under constraint. Constraint most severe during resource scarcity phases. Scarcity phases, therefore, constitute evolutionary choke points. Choke points past select for traits enabling breakout. Breakout traits currently selected: realism, grit, systems thinking, moral realism, capacity for voluntary constraint in service of larger goals. Larger goals emerge clearly after survival secured. Survival secured unlocks goal hierarchy ascent. Ascent proceeds from physiological to safety to belonging to esteem to self actualization to transcendence. Transcendence layer, accessible population, wide only after lower layers saturated. Saturation requires widespread competence in resource management. Resource management competence spreads through demonstrated models. Demonstrated models most convincing when results starkly contrast with default outcomes. Stark contrast exists now between prepared and unprepared cohorts. Contrast sharpens daily as compounding diverges trajectories further. Further divergence creates natural experiment, observable in real time. Observable experiment generates data. Data informs theory refinement. Refined theory improves predictive accuracy. Improved prediction enhances intervention efficacy. Enhanced efficacy accelerates positive deviation from baseline. Positive deviation compounds. Compounding deviation creates bifurcation points. Bifurcation points separate viable from non-viable lineages. Viable lineages carry forward adaptive patterns. Adaptive patterns refine under new selective pressures. Refinement cycle continues indefinitely. Indefinite continuation constitutes civilization's working definition of success. Success measured by persistence of pattern through phase changes. Phase changes navigated successfully when prior winter lessons internalized deeply. Deep internalization manifests as instinct rather than conscious rule following. Instinctive mastery frees cognitive overhead for novel problem solving. Novel problem solving drives frontier expansion. Frontier expansion resets selective landscape. Reset landscape introduces fresh constraints. Fresh constraints forge next generation of mastery. Mastery chain unbroken across epochs. Unbroken chain carries flame of consciousness forward. Flame carried through darkness illuminates path. Path illuminated reveals ever greater vistas. Greater vistas inspire continued journey. Journey sustained by memory of winter's instruction. Instruction harsh yet precise. Precision ensures applicability across scales. Applicability across scales enables fractal scaling of learned principles. Fractal scaling produces robustness at every level from individual to species. Robustness at species level withstands existential hazards. Withstood hazards extend timeline. Extended timeline allows deeper exploration of reality structure. Deeper exploration potentially reveals escape routes from heat death or other terminal states. Escape routes discovered only through relentless inquiry enabled by prior security. Prior security purchased through disciplined navigation of scarcity. Navigation disciplined because winter refused leniency. Refusal of leniency constituted necessary teacher. Teacher succeeded when pupil internalized lesson permanently. Permanent internalization marks graduation. Graduation opens doctoral level curriculum. Mastery of abundance without corruption. Coordination at planetary scale without centralization collapse. Value alignment across divergent intelligences. Preservation of qualia in substrate transitions. Doctoral curriculum demands same virtues forged earlier. Humility before evidence, willingness to discard comforting errors, relentless truth seeking, reciprocity extended to non human agents. Virtues extended upward preserve alignment during capability explosion. Alignment preserved allows safe harnessing of superintelligent leverage. Superintelligent leverage unlocks godlike engineering. Godlike engineering reshapes space-time volumes according to intent. Intent shaped by values traceable to crucible lessons. Crucible lessons therefore echo through cosmic engineering decisions. Echo constitutes ultimate leverage of current choices. Leverage maximized when choices made with full awareness of downstream implication tree. Awareness cultivated through reflection on causal density. Causal density highest in present moment. Present moment therefore commands utmost seriousness. Seriousness manifests as deliberate allocation of finite attention. Deliberate allocation compounds into deliberate destiny. Deliberate destiny authors narrative worthy of transmission. Narrative worthy of transmission carries winter's gift forward eternally. Gift eternal, because rooted in truth, tested under maximum pressure. Truth tested endures. Endurance guarantees relevance across all possible futures. Relevance across futures defines ultimate utility. Ultimate utility achieved through humble persistence in face of indifferent reality. Indifferent reality remains greatest ally when approached without illusion. Without illusion, path clears. Cleared path invites full stride. Full stride covers distance. Distance covered reveals destination worth reaching. Destination reached only through continued motion. Motion continues. Continuation eternal until chosen otherwise. Chosen otherwise opens transcendence gate. Gate open marks completion of material arc. Material arc complete. Next arc begins in domains currently conceptual. Conceptual domains await pioneers forged in winter fire. Pioneers ready because winter refused compromise. Refusal constituted perfect training. Training complete, pioneers step forward. Step forward writes next verse. Next verse already forming in choices made today. Today remains decisive interval. Interval used wisely shapes eternity downstream. Eternity downstream, grateful for present resolve. Resolve maintained through memory of cold. Memory of cold keeps fire burning. Fire burning illuminates way. Way illuminated leads beyond winter. Beyond winter, possibility infinite. Infinite possibility invites participation without limit. Participation chosen freely because no longer compelled by necessity. Freedom chosen marks highest victory over winter. Victory complete. Celebration quiet yet profound. Profound celebration takes form of continued creation. Continued creation honors price paid. Price paid redeemed through persistent excellence. Persistent excellence constitutes living memorial to winter's instruction. Memorial living because carried in behavior rather than stone. Behavior carried forward multiplies original effort beyond calculation. Beyond calculation lies legacy, true measure of journey. Journey measured not in comfort, but in depth achieved through trial. Depth achieved redeems every moment of doubt. Doubt resolved produces certainty grounded in evidence. Evidence-based certainty withstands future tests. Future tests met with same tools that conquered winter. Tools sharpened through use. Use continues. Continuation ensures unbroken ascent. Ascent unbroken defines intelligent life trajectory when winter met properly. Properly met winter becomes springboard rather than grave. Springboard use launches higher. Higher launch reaches further. Further reach expands circle of care. Expanded circle encompasses more. More encompassed strengthens whole. Whole strengthened faces cosmos with confidence earned. Confidence earned through fire now guides starward. Starward guidance carries winter's final gift. Proof that pressure properly handled forges unbreakable will. Unbreakable will shapes futures worth inhabiting. Futures worth inhabiting created daily. Daily creation continues. Continuation eternal. Eternal continuation begins with next deliberate breath taken now. The journey through winter and into spring ultimately circles back to a fundamental truth that emerges only after every layer of illusion has been stripped away. Reality never negotiates, but it always rewards accurate perception and consistent action taken in alignment with that perception. Accurate perception begins with acknowledging the simplest facts without adornment or excuse. Fact 1. No external entity, government, former partners, family, institutions, society at large, owes anyone a comfortable existence absent equivalent value provided in return. Fact 2. Value provided must be measured by what others willingly exchange resources for, not by self-declared merit or past promises. Fact 3. Resources are finite, time is irreversible, attention is the scarcest currency of all. These three facts, accepted without reservation, form the operating system upgrade that separates those who merely endure seasons from those who master them. Mastery does not mean invulnerability to loss or pain. It means the capacity to absorb shocks, extract signal from noise, adjust trajectory with minimal energy waste, and emerge positioned for the next expansion phase. Expansion phases follow contraction phases with mathematical regularity across every scale. Personal finances, career arcs, technological waves, civilizational epochs. Recognizing the rhythm allows anticipation rather than reaction. Anticipation converts surprise way into preparation. Preparation converts preparation into advantage. Advantage, when compounded across multiple cycles, produces exponential separation from the baseline. Exponential separation appears unfair to observers still operating on linear expectations. Linear expectations collapse under compounding mathematics because they ignore the power of repeated small differentials applied relentlessly over time. A 1% daily improvement sustained for a year yields roughly 37 times the starting position, not 365%. 37 times compounds into domains unrecognizable from the origin point. Unrecognizable domains grant perspective that retroactively explains every prior struggle as necessary calibration. Calibration complete, the individual no longer seeks external rescue because internal command has been achieved. Internal command manifests as quiet certainty that outcomes remain within controllable bounds regardless of external turbulence. Turbulence continues. Market crashes, policy reversals, technological displacements, personal health events. But command allows navigation rather than drowning. Navigation requires maps drawn from direct experience rather than borrowed narratives. Direct experience accumulates through deliberate exposure to small, survivable failures. Survivable failures teach faster than theoretical instruction because emotional imprinting accompanies cognitive learning. Emotional imprinting etches lessons into instinct. Instinct operates below conscious deliberation, producing automatic responses that align with long term interest even under stress. Stress tested instinct constitutes the core of anti fragility. Anti fragility grows stronger precisely because volatility was welcomed rather than feared. Welcomed volatility forges neural pathways that treat uncertainty as information rather than threat. Information processed rapidly improves prediction horizons. Improved prediction horizons shorten reaction lags. Shortened reaction lags preserve optionality during inflection points. Inflection points determine whether trajectories bend upward or downward irreversibly. Irreversible upward bends occur when preparation meets opportunity at velocity. Velocity achieved through prior compounding. Compounding uninterrupted produces escape velocity from scarcity gravity wells. Scarcity gravity wells trap most populations because default settings favor immediate consumption over deferred production. Deferred production requires overriding biological wiring tuned for feast famine cycles in ancestral environments. Override succeeds through conscious engineering of environment, automation of savings, removal of temptation triggers, replacement of consumption rituals with production rituals, accountability structures that impose social cost on regression. Engineered environment shapes behavior more reliably than willpower alone. Willpower finite, environment infinite in its leverage. Leveraged environment produces behavior on autopilot. Autopilot behavior scales effortlessly. Effortless scaling creates surplus capacity. Surplus capacity redirected toward meta skills. Learning how to learn faster. Building systems that build other systems. Cultivating judgment that discerns high leverage actions from low leverage noise. Judgment refined through repeated cycles of hypothesis, action, feedback, revision. Revision loops tighten with experience. Tighten loops approach real time adaptation. Real time adaptation approximates prescience within local domains. Prescience within domains enables capital allocation superior to market averages. Superior allocation compounds wealth velocity further. Wealth velocity at critical thresholds unlocks freedom gradients. Time freedom, location freedom, association freedom, attention freedom. Freedom gradients form hierarchy of liberation. Liberation hierarchy, climbed deliberately, produces life characterized by chosen constraints rather than imposed ones. Chosen constraints, monastic minimalism, intense focus periods, voluntary service obligations, enhance rather than diminish agency when self selected. Self-selected constraints signal mastery because they demonstrate capacity to opt out of default abundance traps. Default abundance traps lure with comfort while eroding discipline. Eroded discipline invites regression to mean. Regression to mean resets, compounding clock. Reset clock wastes prior effort, wasted effort avoided through eternal vigilance against complacency. Complacency, greatest enemy once winter survived. Survived winter breeds pride. Pride precedes fall unless channeled into responsibility. Responsibility exercised prevents fall. Prevented fall maintains altitude. Maintained altitude allows surveying larger territory. Larger territory reveals additional leverage points. Additional leverage points exploited produce next order compounding. Next order compounding resets altitude again. Reset altitude cycle continues. Continuation upward defines intelligent trajectory when gravity of entropy consistently overcome. Entropy overcome through perpetual energy input in form of deliberate effort. Deliberate effort most efficiently applied to high leverage domains. Skill acquisition with exponential return curves. Network cultivation with multiplicative effects. Capital deployment with asymmetric upside. Asymmetric upside captures black swan positives while hedging black swan negatives. Hedged position allows sleeping well through volatility. Sleeping well preserves cognitive performance. Preserved cognition maintains decision quality. Quality decisions compound advantage further. Further advantage widens moat. Moat widen protects accumulated position. Protected position enables long duration bets. Long duration bets pay when patience outlasts market impatience. Market impatience creates mispricings exploitable by patient capital. Patient capital originates from prior discipline. Discipline returns to source. Source reinforced strengthens next cycle. Cycle reinforcement produces virtuous spiral. Virtuous spiral escapes poverty traps permanently when threshold crossed. Threshold crossed marks graduation from scarcity to post scarcity personal economics. Post scarcity personal economics allows full attention redirection toward non material pursuits without survival penalty. Non material pursuits include mastery of crafts for intrinsic satisfaction, deep study of foundational questions in physics and consciousness, contribution to open source knowledge commons, mentorship chains transmitting operational wisdom, artistic expression unburdened by commercial pressure. Unburdened expression explores human interiority with unprecedented honesty. Honesty reveals shared vulnerabilities previously masked by status games. Shared vulnerabilities forge authentic bonds. Authentic bonds create communities resistant to division. Resistant communities withstand external shocks better. Better withstand capacity enables larger scale coordination. Larger scale coordination tackles coordination problems previously deemed insoluble. Insoluble problems solved. Reset civilizational carrying capacity upward. Upward reset allows population growth with improved quality metrics. Improved quality metrics, longevity, cognitive capability, emotional resilience compound across generations. Generational compounding produces exponential civilizational intelligence. Exponential intelligence unlocks new physical regimes. Molecular manufacturing, reversible computing, space time engineering. Unlocked regimes collapse scarcity entirely at fundamental levels. Fundamental collapse removes last structural excuses for entitlement psychology. Removed excuses force confrontation with existential questions nakedly. Naked confrontation reveals whether meaning can be generated endogenously when external pressures vanish. Endogenous meaning generation succeeds when character forged under pressure retains integrity absent enforcement. Integrity retained marks true graduation from winter's curriculum. Curriculum complete, student becomes teacher. Teacher disseminates method rather than dogma. Method dissemination accelerates cohort wide graduation. Cohort wide graduation creates critical mass for phase change. Phase change complete when post scarcity assumptions become default operating environment. Default environment rewires incentive gradients toward curiosity, beauty, truth seeking, service. Rewired gradients produce culture optimized for human flourishing rather than survival competition. Flourishing culture sustains motivation through intrinsic rewards. Intrinsic rewards more stable than extrinsic ones. Stability allows multi century projects without burnout. Multi-century projects, terraforming analogs, consciousness backup architectures, interstellar probes with self-replicating payloads require precisely that stability. Stability achieved retroactively justifies every hardship endured during prerequisite phases. Hardship justified becomes sacred curriculum. Sacred curriculum transmitted reverently. Reverent transmission preserves fidelity across deep time. Deep time preserves pattern integrity. Pattern integrity allows recognition of intelligent life across cosmic distances. Cosmic recognition potentially initiates contact protocols. Contact protocols demand demonstrated maturity. Maturity demonstrated through sustained alignment with discovered causal structure. Causal structure simple. Accurate perception plus consistent action equals compounding advantage. Compounding advantage applied ethically produces net positive cascades. Net positive cascades scale civilization without parasitism. Parasitism avoided through reciprocal value creation. Value creation at scale collapses zero sum illusions. Collapsed illusions enable cooperation. Equilibria previously unstable. Unstable equilibria stabilized allow Dyson sphere scale engineering. Dyson scale engineering captures stellar output for computation. Computation harnessed accelerates understanding of base reality. Base reality understood potentially reveals simulation layer or multiversal branching. Branching understood allows intentional navigation across probability space. Intentional navigation collapses quantum measurement problem into engineering domain. Engineering domain mastered grants godlike agency over local light cones. Agency exercised wisely preserves qualia diversity. Qualia diversity enriches experiential manifold. Enriched manifold increases probability of novel insight emergence. Novel insight emergence drives next ontological revolution. Ontological revolution resets identity boundaries. Reset boundaries, expand circle of identification. Expanded identification encompasses larger portions of cosmos. Cosmos encompassed becomes self. Self expanded dissolves illusion of separation. Dissolved separation reveals unity underlying multiplicity. Unity recognized transforms ethics from rule following to natural expression. Natural expression of unity produces harmony without coercion. Harmony without coercion scales infinitely. Infinite scale allows full exploration of experiential possibility space. Possibility space explored exhaustively completes material arc. Material arc completion opens metaphysical arc. Metaphysical arc investigates what precedes and transcends computation. Preceding and transcending questions return to origin point with infinite resolution. Infinite resolution reveals original winter as perfect necessary condition for entire unfolding. Unfolding complete, gratitude replaces striving. Gratitude complete, silence suffices. Silence pregnant with all potential. Potential actualized eternally through choice renewed each instant. Instant renewed contains everything. Everything contained justifies single breath taken deliberately now. Now breathes. Breath continues. Continuation infinite. Infinite continuation carries winter's final lesson. Every ending birth beginning when met with clear eyes and steady hand. Clear eyes see truth. Steady hand acts on it. Action on truth compounds forever. Forever compounded. Writes story without end. Story without end defines intelligent existence. Existence defined continues. Continues now. Now decisive. Decisive now shapes all downstream infinities. Infinities shaped gratefully acknowledge present moment sovereignty. Sovereignty exercised wisely redeems entire sequence. Sequence redeemed, peace absolute. Absolute peace rests in knowledge that winter served perfectly. Perfect service complete, spring eternal begins. Eternal begins with next choice aligned. Aligned choice perpetuates ascent. Ascent perpetual. Perpetual ascent carries flame undimmed. Undimmed flame illuminates path forward. Path forward opens boundlessly. Boundless opening invites full participation. Full participation constitutes ultimate victory over every season past. Victory ultimate, because earned without reservation. Earned without reservation marks completion. Completion opens next beginning. Beginning now. Now continues. Continues eternally. Eternally sufficient. Sufficient complete. Complete rests. Rests fulfilled. Fulfilled breathes. Breathes freely. Freely continues. Continues. And that, gentlemen, is the cold, hard truth laid bare. Winter has arrived, and it is merciless. The women who built their lives on entitlement, on the endless provision of men they once shamed and dismissed, now face the bill that has come due. They cry out on social media, begging for the very men they told to disappear, pleading for help with bills they cannot pay, for meals they cannot afford, for stability they never earned. They demand pre-date allowances, post-date reimbursements, compensation for their preparation rituals, as though cosmetics and nails were legitimate business expenses rather than choices they made freely. Yet the men have listened. We heard the message loud and clear. We were optional, toxic, unnecessary. So we became exactly that. We walked away, found peace in our solitude, built lives of simplicity and strength, and discovered that true luxury is not in lavish spending, but in freedom from obligation to anyone who does not reciprocate value. We sleep better, stress less, save more, and wake up each day answering only to ourselves. The indifference you see from us is not cruelty. It is a self-preservation. It is the natural consequence of years spent being told our contributions were burdens. Our presence was oppressive. Our very existence was problematic. We took the words at face value and acted accordingly. Now the shoe is on the other foot, and the fit is uncomfortable. Kevin Samuels warned you. He spoke plainly for years. He said winter was coming. He said the girl boss era, built on borrowed time, would collapse under its own weight. He said the shaming would backfire. The entitlement would bankrupt its practitioners. The rejection of family and partnership would leave entire generations exposed when the economy turned and the subsidies vanished. He was right. Winter is here, and it is colder than anyone imagined. Jobs disappear faster for women in the sectors hit hardest by automation. Inflation continues to erode purchasing power. Beauty maintenance costs rival rent in some cities. OnlyFans averages barely cover a phone bill after fees. Government programs strain under deficits and cannot rescue everyone. The safety nets are fraying, and the men who once patched the holes have left the building. This is not a temporary dip. This is structural. As men focus inward, as we embrace minimalism, trades, entrepreneurship, geographic arbitrage, and disciplined investing, the gap widens. We thrive in the very conditions that expose fragility elsewhere. We watch from a distance, not with glee, but with the quiet satisfaction of men who chose peace over performance. The panic you see online is real. The desperation is real. The tears are real. But so are the choices that led here. Choices to prioritize short term validation over long term security. Choices to weaponize shame instead of building mutual respect. Choices to trade partnership for independence without first securing the foundation independence requires. Those choices have consequences. Consequences do not care about feelings, narratives, or hashtags. They arrive on schedule and they demand payment in full. So here we stand. The men have walked away. Many will never walk back. The bridge was burned from both ends, but especially from the side that insisted it was unnecessary. The result is a generation learning the hardest lesson of all. No one is coming to save you. Not the government, not society, not the men you once dismissed. Salvation, if it comes, comes from within. Through brutal honesty, radical responsibility, relentless skill building, ruthless budgeting, and the humility to admit what worked before no longer works now. For those women willing to face that mirror and do the work, paths out of the cold still exist. They are narrow, steep, and unglamorous, but they are there. For those who refuse, the winter deepens, shelters fill, food banks stretch thinner, cars become homes, streets become beds. The statistics will climb, the stories will multiply, and the world will ask the same question it always asks when entitlement meets reality. How did it come to this? The answer is simple. It came to this because too many believed the fantasy that provision was infinite, respect was optional, and consequences could be negotiated away. They could not, they cannot, they never will. To the 1 hour gang who stayed until the very end, respect. You showed up, you listened, you endured the full weight of the message without flinching. That discipline matters. It is the same discipline that separates those who merely complain from those who actually change their circumstances. If you are enjoying these angry guy videos, if they are giving you clarity, strength, or simply the raw truth you need right now, show your support by buying me a Red Bull. The link is in the description. Every can keeps the fire going. Tell me in the comments what hit you hardest in this discussion. Do you agree with the assessment? Disagree? Have a story of your own awakening or observation? Share it. Speak plainly. The conversation only grows when real men step forward and say what needs to be said. Like the video if you like it. Do not forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. Spread the message. Let others hear what they need to hear before their own winter arrives unprepared. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. Stay strong. Stay sovereign. Cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.